I was lying in a cave, barely alive. No water, no food, 3 days straight. With me were twin sisters, Su Li and Su Yao, the school beauties. They looked terrible, dirty and exhausted, lying on the ground with torn clothes and bare feet. I was so hungry I started seeing things. The twins turned into cows right before my eyes. Cows meant milk. Milk meant survival. I tried to crawl toward them, but my body wouldn't move. Su Li yelled at me and snapped me out of it. Just a hallucination. Damn, this place was definitely not Earth. When I jumped, I went a whole meter up, way higher than normal. The gravity here was maybe 80% of Earth's. The cave walls glowed with some weird mineral, like natural nightlights. One tunnel led deeper underground where bat-like monsters lived. The only exit outside was a tiny crawl hole leading to a jungle with trees 60 meters tall, vines thick as barrels, six-legged beasts bigger than tigers, and mosquitoes the size of fists. We sealed the exit with rocks and survived on water droplets seeping through the stone walls. It wasn't enough for 3 people. But I noticed something. The portal that brought us here was still glowing faintly red in the center of the cave, pulsing like it was breathing, maybe once a minute. I figured it was recharging. Maybe when it filled up, we could go home. How did we end up here? 3 days ago, it was a normal Friday afternoon. I'm the twins' classmate and private tutor. I was walking them home because their mom made them walk as punishment for failing their fitness test, which I had honestly reported. Su Li blamed me for that the whole way. While we argued, a glowing dot appeared in the air at a crosswalk. Su Yao, who can't resist anything shiny, ran over and poked it. She got sucked in instantly. Su Li jumped after her sister. I wanted to run. I'm just a tutor, I haven't even been paid yet. But the thing locked onto me too and pulled me in. That's how all 3 of us ended up stuck in a cave on an alien planet, slowly dying. I finally snapped at Su Li. She kept blaming me for everything, saying it was my fault we ended up here because I told her mom about their failed fitness test. I called her a fool. I told her she wasn't a princess anymore, just another person about to die in this cave. I let it all out. I reminded her how I tutored her for a whole semester and her total score only went up 5 points, from 245 to 250. That earned me 1,000 yuan. I could have made more collecting recyclables. She said I was a bad teacher. I told her I explained the same problem 5 times and she'd forget it by the afternoon. All she ever did was play Genshin Impact. And Su Yao was even worse. She actually lost 20 points. Combined, I technically owed their mom money. Su Li was shaking, almost crying. I told her if she wanted to cry, she better crawl over and cry into her shoes so we could collect the tears as drinking water. I meant it. We couldn't afford to waste a single drop. Then the cave went quiet. I don't know how long passed, but suddenly I noticed the portal's light was changing from red to green. Adrenaline hit me like a shot. I dragged myself over on all 4s and touched the light membrane. It felt soft, like jelly. Then my hand started turning transparent. My fingers disappeared first, then my whole arm. I couldn't move or speak. My body just faded away completely. I vanished. Behind me, I could hear Su Li and Su Yao screaming my name, banging on the portal, but it wouldn't take them. Su Yao cried that I'd gone home and left them to die. Su Li tried to hold it together. She was the older sister, after all, even if only by 10 seconds. Then Su Li remembered what I always said about wasting water. She grabbed one of the little leather shoes we'd been using to collect filtered water drops from the cave ceiling, held it up to Su Yao's face, and told her, "If you're going to cry, cry into the shoe." The 2 of them sat there in the dark, listening to water drip, hoping I'd come back. After I disappeared from the cave, I got pulled into some kind of white, empty space. No gravity, no sound, nothing. Then information flooded into my brain. The portal had bonded to me. I got time travel permissions. But the bad news, I only had 3 minutes on Earth before getting pulled back to the alien cave. 3 minutes. The system said it detected my subconscious desire for high-calorie food and would send me to the nearest source. After this first trip, future portals would just drop me randomly in human cities. I landed on something soft. Carpet. I smelled expensive sandalwood. Air conditioning hit my sweaty, filthy body. I looked around and realized this was the Su family mansion, the ridiculously huge villa on the hillside where I used to tutor the twins. The portal read my starving brain and sent me straight to where I knew the food was. For 1 second I was overjoyed. Then the countdown appeared in my vision. 2:56. 2:55, ticking down. 3 minutes. I had to grab supplies, water, food, anything, or all three of us would die back in that cave. The kitchen was on the first floor. I was on the third. This mansion was insanely big. In my tiny 30-square-meter apartment, 3 minutes would be enough to move everything out twice. Here, just the spiral staircase took forever. I ran downstairs, legs shaking, heart pounding. When I reached the first floor, I spotted someone on the couch. It was Su Qingwan, the twins' mother. She was curled up alone in a purple silk robe, holding a framed photo of her daughters. She looked exhausted, like she'd been crying for days. Then I saw the document on the coffee table. My photo, printed big, with red bold text, wanted 50 million yuan reward for information on suspect Lin Bei. She'd used all her connections to pressure the police into making me the prime suspect in her daughter's disappearance. She wanted to tear the whole city apart to find them. I tried to sneak past her to the kitchen, but my stomach, empty for 3 days, betrayed me with the loudest growl imaginable. She spun around. We locked eyes. She recognized me instantly despite my wild, filthy appearance, the face she'd hated and hoped to find for 3 days. Lin Bei, her voice was shaking. She looked ready to kill me. I panicked and blurted out the dumbest thing possible. Auntie Sue. I'm not Lin Bei. I called her Auntie Sue, right after saying I wasn't Lin Bei. Stupidest move ever. She recognized me immediately and came at me like a wild animal protecting her cubs, screaming about where her daughters were. The countdown said 1:45. No time to explain. I yelled, Auntie Sue, we got transported to another world, and ran straight for the kitchen. I slid inside and locked the heavy wooden door behind me. She was banging on the door, begging and crying, saying she'd pay any amount of money, asking if her daughters were still alive. It hurt to hear, but I had no time for feelings. I opened the giant fridge and almost fainted from happiness. It was packed with food. I grabbed a bottle of expensive mineral water and took 2 gulps. Couldn't drink more, or I'd throw up after 3 days of nothing. I stripped off my t-shirt, laid it on the ground, and started raiding. Chocolate, cheese sticks, ham slices, caviar, canned meat. Anything small and high-calorie went onto the shirt. Then I found a grocery cart the maid must have used. I loaded everything into it. Food, water bottles, emptied that fridge completely. About 50 pounds of supplies. I grabbed a box of kitchen knives from the counter. Weapons matter in the wild. Found a blowtorch by the stove, took that too. Salt. People die without salt. I stuffed the whole spice rack into my underwear pocket. Outside, Su Qingwan had called the police. They were already at the mansion. With 15 seconds left, I shouted through the door, we weren't kidnapped. We got transported to an alien planet. I came back to get supplies to save them. They're alive and fine. Trust me. I'll bring them back. She didn't believe a word. She thought I'd been traumatized or brainwashed by kidnappers. The countdown hit 0. I vanished, cart and all. A minute later, police broke down the kitchen door with a battering ram. Guns drawn, they found an empty room. The fridge was open and empty. Chocolate wrappers on the floor, windows locked. Door had been bolted from inside. A whole person and 50 pounds of supplies had vanished from a sealed room. Su Qingwan collapsed on the floor crying, convinced I'd been taken by kidnappers too. But the detective stared at that impossible locked room and knew this was no kidnapping. Within half an hour, a special government agency took over the case. I was cleared as a suspect, and the whole thing got classified as a national-level secret. I reappeared in the cave with the grocery cart full of supplies. The fridge didn't come with me, but everything else did. I was gasping for air, drenched in cold sweat, but when I looked down at 50 pounds of real food and water, I felt like a champion. Su Li and Su Yao were staring at me and the cart. Su Yao's eyes were full of desperate hunger. Su Li tried to hide hers, but I could tell. I opened a water bottle and drank half of it right there. Then I decided to have some fun. I told them the rule. Call me Big Brother, and you get water. Simple deal. Su Li tried to negotiate. She said she was the heir to the Su family empire and could offer me way more than one word of respect. But I already knew I couldn't go back to Earth permanently. Her promises meant nothing here. Su Yao caved first. She put on her sweetest voice. Lin Bei, Big Brother, please give Yao Yao a sip. And I handed over the water and a sausage as a reward. She ate like a starving animal. Su Li refused. She said she'd rather starve or get eaten by monsters than call me that. She turned her back to me, shaking but stubborn. Her mom always told her that once you lower your standards, they keep dropping. I told her I'd bury her if she died, for her sister's sake. Then I ate my chocolate and went to study the portal. While I was looking away, Su Yao snuck her leftover half sausage and a sip of water to her sister. I'd also, accidentally, dropped 3 chocolate truffles near Su Yao. Su Li ate everything, fast but still elegant, even now. Then Su Li noticed something. The chocolate was the exact brand her mom brought from overseas last week. The water bottle had her family company's laser-engraved logo on the bottom. She figured it out immediately and came to confront me. You went to my house through the portal, didn't you? I told her the truth. Yes, I raided her family's kitchen. I almost got caught by her mom. And no, I can't bring them back to Earth. I can't even stay there myself. If I could, why would I come back to this hellhole? I told her straight. Keep acting like a princess here and she'd die before her sister. She swallowed her pride and said quietly, whatever you need, I'll give it. Just keep us alive and get us home. Then I checked the portal's status. It showed 0.1% charged, needing 72 hours to fill up. The rule was simple. Every 24 hours of natural charging gave me 1 minute on Earth. Once it hit 3 minutes, I could teleport, but to a random city this time, not her house. 3 days of waiting for 3 minutes of scavenging. The efficiency was terrible. I needed to figure out how to make every second count. My phone still had 30% battery. During those 3 minutes back on Earth, it had picked up signal and downloaded a flood of messages. I scrolled through them in the cave. The school had blown up my inbox. The dean thought I kidnapped 2 classmates. My homeroom teacher was begging me not to do anything extreme. Hundreds of messages, all the same panic. The police had sent texts too, saying my location was surrounded, telling me to release the hostages, promising leniency since I was a first-time offender and still a student. Surrounded? I'm in a cave possibly billions of light years away. Good luck sending a spaceship. The most messages were from Auntie Sue. I played one of her voice messages out loud. Her crying voice filled the cave. Lin Bei, Auntie is begging you. Don't hurt them. I'll give you whatever you want. Su Yao recognized her mom's voice immediately and crawled over, crying. Su Li rushed over too, forgetting all about being dignified. I let them listen. Another message played. You want money? 50 million? 100 million? I can get cash right now. Just let me hear my daughter's voices. Su Yao wanted to grab the phone and talk to her mom. I pushed her hand away gently. No signal here. Can't send anything. I told them to save the battery for recording videos. Then I noticed Su Li studying me carefully. She'd seen the wanted notice on my screen. Her expression changed. She started treating me like a cornered criminal who might snap at any moment. She softened her voice and tried to calm me down, saying it was all a misunderstanding, that her family had enough influence to clear the warrant if I just brought them home. She was testing me, trying to figure out if I could take them back whenever I wanted. I laughed and told her the truth. The portal only stores 1 minute of Earth time per day. 1 minute per day. She froze completely. She'd assumed I could open the door anytime. Now she realized we were trapped here for a long time. The warrant didn't scare me at all. Nobody on Earth could catch someone who teleports. But they couldn't go home either. For weeks, maybe longer, they'd be stuck in this monster-filled cave, completely dependent on me to survive. I watched the hope drain from her face. She nodded weakly and whispered that she understood. I pointed to a clean corner of the cave and told them both to rest. Stop daydreaming about going home. The only thing that matters here is surviving until tomorrow. I tested the blowtorch from the kitchen. A blue flame shot out 20 centimeters long, lighting up the dark cave. Both sisters flinched. I told them to relax. It wasn't for them. It was our only real weapon against whatever was growling in the deep tunnels. I put it away and made it clear. The fuel was more precious than our lives. Nobody touches it unless something is trying to kill us. No using it to cook or boil water. Then I unpacked the cart like opening blind boxes. 20 bottles of water, enough for a week if we're careful. A set of kitchen knives, including a solid bone-chopping cleaver. Then I pulled out a heavy black vacuum-sealed bag covered in foreign text. I had no idea what it was. Su Yao recognized it instantly. Iberian ham, 5J grade. Their mom paid 300,000 yuan for it. Best part, you don't need to cook it, just slice and eat. In a cave where we can't make fire, that was a lifesaver. I also had a chunk of raw beef, canned lunch meat, and 3 boxes of fancy chocolate. After the inventory, I set the rules. From now on, we're a team. I handle supplies, planning, and danger. They handle camp maintenance, cleaning, organizing, keeping things running. Work equals food. No work, no food. Applies to everyone, including me. Su Yao raised her dusty little hand and declared she had no objections and offered unconditional support. I tossed her a chocolate for the good attitude. I gave Su Yao her first task, rewrap all the food with plastic wrap to keep moisture out. Then I turned to Su Li. Her job was to upgrade the water filter using empty bottles instead of shoes, move the stinky shoes away, and rebuild the rock wall at the cave entrance with smaller gaps so bugs couldn't crawl in at night. Do the work, come eat. She wanted to argue. I could see it on her face. But she stopped herself. The rule was fair. I'd taken the most dangerous job for myself. She turned around without a word and got to work with her bare hands. The same hands that used to play piano. I sliced into the ham. The blade cut through the vacuum seal, and I put a piece in my mouth. The rich, salty fat melted on my tongue. 3 days of starvation made it the best thing I'd ever tasted. 10 minutes later, Su Yao finished sealing everything up, neat and tidy. I gave her a thick slice of ham as payment. She devoured it. 10 more minutes, and Su Li came back. Dirty face, scraped hands, sweat on her forehead. She stood in front of me silently. I cut her a piece even thicker than her sister's, about half a pound, and handed it over on clean packaging paper. No teasing, no conditions. Just the deal. Work done, food earned. She stared at it for a moment, then took it and said something I'd never heard from her before. Thank you. Quiet, but real. She chewed slowly. Her eyes got a little wet, but not from feeling sorry for herself. She told me later it was the first time in her life she'd earned a meal with her own hands. Somehow, in this terrible place, that felt solid and real. After we ate, I called a short meeting. I told them we're a team now. I'm the captain, they're the crew. I asked Su Li if she had any objections. She twitched a little at being called team member Su, but said no. I told them to rest for an hour while I went to check the cave entrance security. I checked Su Li's wall work at the cave entrance. She'd sealed it up tight with small rocks, leaving just a fist-sized air hole at the top. I peeked through. It was dark outside, and the jungle was full of glowing green eyes and howling beasts. Nothing was getting in. I had to admit, the princess did solid work. I told her so and handed her a water bottle. She looked completely shocked. She'd prepared 100 comebacks expecting me to mock her, but I actually complimented her. She got flustered and turned away, muttering that she only did it so she wouldn't get eaten. With the phone at 25% battery, I had more important things to do. I called Su Yao over. My plan: record a video explaining everything, proving I'm not a kidnapper. Next time the portal charges up, I'd leave the phone for the police. 3 minutes isn't enough to explain to anyone in person, but a video could do it. Maybe the government could send scientists or a rescue team. Su Yao went first. She started okay. Hello, police officers. Mama, it's Yao Yao. Then immediately started crying. I told her to hurry up. The battery was dying. She pulled herself together and explained how she touched the light and got sucked in, how her sister followed, and how I ran over last trying to save them. Then it went sideways. Don't blame Lin Bei, Mama. Even though he locked us in this dark place and won't let us leave, I stopped her. That sounds like illegal imprisonment. She tried again. Even though Lin Bei is really mean and scared my sister with a gun and forced her to carry rocks. As long as we obey him, he gives us meat. I cut the recording. This wasn't a video clearing my name. This was a victim's testimony that would get me shot on sight. I asked her who taught her Chinese. She said, "You did." I nearly passed out. I shoved her aside and did it myself. I pointed the camera at my face, introduced myself as the unlucky guy on the wanted poster, and firmly stated I was not a kidnapper. I filmed the glowing cave walls, the portal, both sisters alive and well, and the cart full of quality food. I made sure to show the expensive ham. Proof I wasn't mistreating anyone. I even claimed I let them eat first, which earned me a massive eye roll from Su Li that luckily wasn't on camera. I explained the portal's 72-hour charge cycle, the 3-minute limit, and asked for any scientists or rescue teams they could send. Then, just in case we never made it back, I asked Annie Su to please settle my tutoring wages and burn the cash as spirit money. I read out my bank account number. I shut the phone off to save battery, wrapped it in plastic bags to keep moisture out, and tucked it against my body. That phone was now our most important possession. It was getting late. The sealed entrance kept out the wind, so the temperature was bearable. I laid my jacket on the ground near the supply cart and told the sisters to stop curling up in their cold corner and come sleep closer. No point freezing to death overnight. Su hesitated, but when she saw I'd already turned my back to them, she quietly brought Su Yao over and lay down nearby. Fourth night since we arrived on this planet. First night any of us actually felt a little bit safe. Middle of the night. I sleep light out here. Deep sleep in the wild is suicide. So when a freezing cold hand poked my shoulder, I was awake instantly. It was Su Li, crouching in front of me. White face, cold sweat, both hands on her stomach, looking like she was in serious pain. Su Yao was still knocked out behind her, drooling in her sleep like a dead pig. Su Li couldn't get the words out. She kept stammering until she finally whispered that she needed to use the bathroom. I pointed to the dark corner deep in the cave where we'd been going. She refused. It was pitch black over there, and she'd heard monster sounds earlier. She couldn't wake her sister, so she asked me to go with her. The school beauty asking me to escort her to the toilet. If this were normal life, nobody would believe it. I said no at first. Then she hit me with the nuclear option. If you don't come with me, I'll go right here in front of you. That mental image made me grab the cleaver and get moving immediately. I was not sleeping next to that smell for the next few days. I dug out a pack of tissues from my school backpack, the only useful thing in there besides worthless textbooks and test papers. Handed her 2 sheets and told her to use them wisely. Strategic resource, every sheet counts. She grabbed them and waddled off toward the dark corner as fast as she could. I stopped about 10 meters away, turned my back, and stood guard with the knife. I started reciting classical Chinese poetry in my head to distract myself. Then came the sound, a loud one, followed by a whole series of sounds that I will not describe. The kind of sounds that destroy a goddess image permanently. I said nothing, pretended I heard nothing. 5 minutes later, she came out from behind the rock with her hair covering her face. She whispered, "I'm done," in the tiniest voice imaginable. We walked back in silence. Halfway there she stopped and thanked me, not just for going with her, but for not laughing. I told her I was only protecting the cave's air quality, and next time she should wake her sister instead. She muttered, "Mind your own business," in that familiar bratty tone, but something had shifted. I could tell the embarrassment actually broke down some wall between us. Before we fell asleep, I told her not to eat so fast next time. 3 days of starvation and then stuffing yourself. A delicate stomach like hers can't handle it. She buried her face in her arms. In the dark, I'm pretty sure she smiled. I had a nightmare. In the dream, I turned into a piece of freshly cooked tang monk meat, and 2 female demons were fighting over me. One had her arms wrapped tight around my neck, sucking away my life force. The other had transformed into a giant python, coiling around my waist and legs, her head nudging against my stomach looking for the best spot to bite. The suffocating feeling got worse and worse until I couldn't breathe at all. That jolt of panic snapped me awake. I gasped for air, eyes flying open. But instead of seeing the rocky cave ceiling, I was staring at a whole landscape of pale skin that I definitely shouldn't describe in detail. In the faint glow of the cave minerals, I finally understood what was happening. There were no demons. These 2 sisters with their catastrophic sleeping habits had turned me into a human body pillow. On my left, Su Yao was clinging to me like a koala bear. Both arms locked around my neck in a death grip, her face buried in my chest, sleeping deeply and peacefully. Because of her wild sleeping posture, her already short skirt had rolled all the way up to her waist, exposing everything underneath. One of her legs was thrown across my stomach with zero shame, pressing down on me with her full weight. That explained the python from my dream. On my right, the situation was even more dangerous. Su Li, the girl who acted cold and dignified every single day of her life, was hugging my leg like a stuffed animal. Her face was pressed against my inner thigh, resting in an extremely sensitive zone. A few more centimeters upward, and she would have been making direct contact with my dignity as a man. That explained the neck-strangling demon. I felt the blood rush to my head. I consider myself a decent person. And yes, both of them were currently covered in dirt and looked like they'd been living in the wilderness for a week, which they had. but I'm still a healthy teenage boy with functioning hormones. Waking up to this kind of full-body contact first thing in the morning, my body gave an honest physical response that I had absolutely no control over, which made the whole situation 10 times more awkward. I gritted my teeth, grabbed the leg draped over my thigh, warm and smooth under my hand despite the layer of grime, and shoved it sideways. Suli mumbled a sleepy complaint about losing something warm. Then she slowly opened her eyes. First thing she saw, denim jeans. Second thing, looking slightly higher, a very obvious bump. Third thing, looking all the way up, my face, dark as a thundercloud, glaring down at her. Her brain froze for 3 full seconds. Then the realization hit her like lightning. Her face had just been pressed against my thigh. Right there. In that area. She let out a scream so loud it echoed through every tunnel in the cave and probably startled monsters sleeping 100 meters deep. She launched herself backward like she'd been electrocuted, scrambling on all fours until her back hit the cave wall. Hands flew up to cover her face. Fingers spread apart just enough to shoot me a look of pure horror and outrage through the gaps. You pervert. I rolled my eyes hard enough to see my own brain. Lady, get your facts straight. You're the one who wrapped yourself around me like an octopus. I should be charging you with harassment. The scream woke Su Yao too. She lifted her head groggily from my chest. What happened? Is it breakfast time? Then she felt the wetness around her mouth. She wiped it, a whole handful of drool. She looked at my black t-shirt and saw the enormous wet stain right on the chest. Her masterpiece. Her face turned so red I thought she might actually start steaming. I'm sorry. She ripped her arms off my neck and dove behind her sister like a frightened rabbit. I was dreaming about eating jelly. I peeled off the drool-soaked shirt, completely disgusted. Su Yao, are you part faucet? Can you at least close your mouth when you sleep? I can't help it, she whimpered. Su Li, now recovered enough to go on the offensive, crossed her arms. Humph. This is your fault for making us sleep so close together. I stared at her. Fine. Tonight you two sleep on the far end of the cave. I'll sleep over here. You can freeze to death for all I care. No. Su Yao panicked immediately. Last night's warmth had been too precious. Compared to a little embarrassment, dying of cold was way scarier. I promise I won't drool anymore, okay? Watching these two sisters play good cop, bad cop was exhausting. I spread my t-shirt on a rock to dry and stood there shirtless. I play basketball regularly, so while I don't have some perfect 8-pack, my body is lean and solid with visible muscle definition on my arms. I caught Su Li sneaking a glance, then quickly looking away. Her ears turned slightly pink. She clearly wasn't expecting the annoying tutor to have a decent physique. I let it go and walked to the air hole at the cave entrance. No sunlight coming through, but the sky outside was bright. New day. I checked the portal. The progress bar read 34.5%. About 48 hours until the next trip to Earth. I turned to face the two sisters, still huddled in their corner, looking shell-shocked from the morning's events. These next 2 days, we have one mission. Su Li tensed up. What? More rock carrying? I shook my head. I pointed at her legs, still trembling from yesterday's labor, then at Su Yao's tiny frame that would start wheezing after jogging 10 steps. With your current fitness level, if we actually run into danger, you can't even escape. Even if I had 3 heads and 6 arms, I couldn't protect 2 dead weights who can't run. So for these 2 days, we stay inside. We fix up this cave properly. And more importantly, I picked up a stick I'd grabbed from the cave entrance and tapped it against my palm like a pointer. Physical training. Su Yao's eyes went wide. Training? Starting with the basics. Adapt to the gravity. Build up gradually. Su Li practically exploded. Her already sore legs buckled, and she nearly collapsed to her knees just hearing the word. Training? I refuse. You'll kill us. I nearly died running 1,000 meters for the school fitness test, and now you want me to work out? Absolutely not. I didn't argue. I just walked over to the supply cart, picked up a sealed bottle of water and a pack of chocolate, and turned to Su Yao. Okay then. Su Li, you can eat less today. Since you won't be exercising, you don't need as many calories. Saves us food, actually. This trick was devastatingly effective. For someone who had experienced real starvation, the threat of losing food was worse than a death sentence. Wait. Su Li clenched her jaw so hard I could hear her teeth grinding. Fine. I'll do it. Who's scared? I started them on the simplest exercises. Su Yao went first with sit-ups. whining about being picked as the guinea pig, but obediently lying down on the jacket spread on the ground. Then it was push-ups. The cave that had been quiet for days was suddenly filled with nonstop screaming and groaning. 1, 2, 3. Suli, keep your hips up during push-ups. Why are you lying flat on the ground? Ow, ow, ow. I can't do any more. My back is breaking. Breaking or not, keep going. That was only the second one. You're done already, Lin Bei, you demon. You're a monster. Ah. I had already finished my own workout, several times their volume. I sat nearby eating beef jerky while ruthlessly counting their reps. It probably looked cruel, but I wasn't doing this to torture them. In this lower gravity environment, without regular high-intensity exercise, their muscles would deteriorate rapidly. The oxygen content here also seemed much higher than Earth, which explained why every plant and animal grew to such monstrous sizes. Trees 60 meters tall, mosquitoes the size of fists. Understanding the science behind this place was important for our survival. But explaining atmospheric composition and muscle atrophy to two girls who couldn't even pass a high school fitness test would be a complete waste of breath. Much more efficient to just threaten their food supply. 9, 10. When I called the last number, Suli collapsed onto the ground like a puddle of melted wax. 10 reps on the first day, just enough to start adapting. Sweat had soaked through her already dirty blouse, the wet fabric clinging to her body and outlining curves that I hadn't expected. I'd honestly underestimated what those school uniforms had been hiding. I'm going to die, she wheezed, feeling like her lungs were about to explode. You won't die. I tossed her a water bottle. Drink slowly, rest a few minutes. Then we do stretching. Also, I continued. Over these 2 days we're going to completely reorganize this cave. Move the useless rocks out of the center, divide the space into 3 zones. Living area, storage area, and bathroom area. Only when our home base is properly set up can we start thinking about long-term survival. Suli took the water and drank deeply. She watched me from behind as I sorted through supplies and planned layouts. Always moving with purpose, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Even though she was calling me a devil 5 minutes ago, even though her whole body hurt and she wanted to strangle me, watching me work like that, calm and methodical, she felt something unexpected. The constant terror of being trapped on an alien planet, the fear of dying in this cave, the panic about never seeing home again. It all shrank a little when she watched me operate. This guy was steady. Infuriatingly, undeniably steady. Like maybe, if she stuck close enough, she might actually survive this. Maybe even get home. Stupid Lin Bei, she muttered under her breath. I didn't turn around. What? Nothing. Just cursing you. Makes me feel better. The next 2 days were brutal for the sisters, but they worked. Mornings were devil training and hard labor. Nights were awkward huddling together for warmth. By the end of it, the cave looked like an actual livable space, organized, clean, divided into proper zones. Suli stopped looking so hollow and hopeless. She still complained, still acted proud, but she worked faster and better every day. Su Yao went from a girl who could only cry to someone who could sort supplies and even make simple tools by grinding stones together. I pushed myself harder than both of them combined. Endless drills, sprinting, grabbing, dodging, carrying heavy loads. Every movement was practice for what mattered most, the next 3-minute raid on Earth. I had to be a perfect looting machine when that portal opened. Finally, the light turned green. The portal was fully charged. I looked at the 2 sisters standing there, eyes full of hope. I made a decision. Grab my hands. They froze for a second, then both reached out and grabbed on tight. Their small hands gripped mine, my rough, calloused palms against their soft fingers. I told them the truth. I didn't know if the portal could take passengers. It never said yes, never said no. But this might be the only chance, and we had to try. Su Li's palms were slippery with sweat. She was shaking. Su Yao wrapped both hands around my arm like it was a lifeline. I shouted at them. No matter what happens, no matter what it feels like, do not let go of my hands. They nodded frantically. I charged into the green light, pulling them with me. The world twisted. It felt like being thrown into a spinning washing machine. Everything squeezed and warped around us. I could feel their hands in mine, but there was a force pushing against them. The portal was trying to reject them. It only wanted me. Then I felt one hand slip away. Then the other. They were ripped from my grip. I don't know exactly what happened to Su Yao after that. but I learned later. She was thrown forward and hit the cave floor hard. She scrambled up, calling out for me and her sister, asking if they'd made it home. Then she looked around, and her heart sank. Same cave, same glowing rocks, same portal, now drained back to red. But I was gone. Suli was gone. She was completely alone on an alien planet. She opened her mouth to scream, to cry, but then she remembered what I'd drilled into her during training. Learn to shut your mouth if you want to live. In this world, crying out loud is a dinner bell for the monsters. Some creatures have sharp hearing. You cry, they eat. So Suyao clamped both dirty hands over her mouth. She choked back the sobs, tears pouring silently down her face, dripping over her fingers. She curled into a tiny ball on the cave floor, shaking, terrified, staring into the darkness with wide, wet eyes. She didn't make a sound. Her sister was gone. I was gone. She was the only one left. The world twisted and snapped into focus. Blinding sunlight, loud voices, the smell of tractor exhaust. We'd made it to Earth, but not to the Sioux mansion this time. We were standing in the middle of some small rural town. Low buildings, faded propaganda slogans painted on walls, no skyscrapers in sight. And our appearance was absolutely insane. I was shirtless, pushing a supermarket cart. Suli was in a torn-up skirt covered in mud, her hair looking like a bird's nest. We looked like two feral people who'd escaped from a jungle tribe. People were already staring and gathering around. I pulled out the cleaver, glared at them, and shouted, "What are you looking at? We're filming a movie." That scattered them pretty quick. Then I noticed, Suyao wasn't with us. A message flashed in my vision, overload warning. The portal could only transport living beings and objects up to my own body weight. I weighed 73 kilos. Suli was 45. Add the cart and knives. There was no room left for Suyao. The system had automatically kicked her out. My stomach dropped. That meant she was alone in the cave right now, probably terrified out of her mind. Suli went pale when she realized her sister was missing. But she didn't scream or fall apart. Her voice shook, but her brain was still working. She got left behind because of the weight limit, right? I was genuinely impressed. Yeah, don't worry, we'll be back in less than 3 minutes. As long as we bring supplies, she'll be fine. I also did the math for the return trip. Minus Su Li's 45 kilos, I could only bring back 28 kilos of stuff. Every gram counted. I shoved my phone into Su Li's hands. 20% battery left. Call your mom. Tell her we're alive. Tell her we need rescue. She didn't waste a single second. Started dialing while scanning our surroundings, instantly reporting what she saw like a trained scout. This looks like a rural township. No big stores anywhere. No supermarket. No convenience store. The countdown was ticking, 2:30. My eyes raked across every storefront on both sides of the street. Then I spotted it, a faded sign reading, Bei, Old Wong's Seed and Agricultural Supply Store. Bags of fertilizer piled by the door, an ad on the glass about corn yielding 1,400 kilos per acre. Seeds. You can't eat seeds right away, but for long-term survival on an alien planet, seeds were the ultimate weapon. Plus, farm supply stores have tools, sickles, hoes, blades. I grabbed Su Li's arm with one hand, the cart with the other, and charged in like a madman. Inside was just one old grandma sitting in a bamboo chair, fanning herself, watching opera on a tiny TV. Two wild-looking people bursting through her door scared her half to death. Goodness, what are you two doing? No time for conversation. Grandma, sorry about this. I picked her up, chair and all, carried her outside, and set her down gently on the sidewalk. Su Li, pay her, I yelled. Su Li didn't hesitate. She ripped a pure gold diamond-studded necklace off her own neck, worth over 100,000 yuan, and pressed it into the old woman's hands. This is worth enough to buy everything in your store. We're sorry, it's life or death. Then she ducked back inside and yanked the metal roller shutter door down behind her. Locked it from the inside. We had to, if some brave citizen tackled us before the countdown ended. Even if we got teleported back, all the supplies would be left behind. Our teamwork was seamless, like we'd been doing this for years. Outside, the grandma stood there holding a diamond necklace worth more than her entire shop, completely baffled. A crowd of onlookers gathered around, pointing and murmuring. Inside the shop, I went absolutely feral. Cabbage seeds? Take them. Radish? Take. Tomatoes? Absolutely. Vitamin C? I swept seed packets off shelves and threw them into the cart without stopping. Suli worked alongside me. She didn't know what was useful, so she watched what I grabbed and took whatever was next to it. I ran to the back wall and pulled down a sickle and a hoe head. Real tools. Game changers for the cave. Then Suli's phone finally found signal. The call connected. Hello? Lin Bei? Are you? Auntie Sue's frantic voice came through. Suli took a deep breath. Her voice cracked, but she spoke fast. Mom. It's me. It's Xiaoli. Listen, we're not dead. We're in Jibai Township, Yunnan. We got transported to an alien planet. We came back using a special method to get supplies. We only have 3 minutes. 1 second of stunned silence. Then her mother's trembling scream. Xiaoli? Transported? Is this real? What about Lin Bei? How did he disappear last time? No time to explain. Suli glanced at me, tearing through shells like a tornado. She bit her lip. Mom, Lin Bei didn't kidnap us. He's saving us. Right now, he's helping me rob a seed store. I could practically hear the question marks exploding in Auntie Sue's brain through the phone. 1 minute left. I snatched the phone from Suli. Auntie Sue, everything Suli said is true. I know it sounds insane, but I have 0 time to explain. Su Yao is still in the cave waiting for us. I can't take this phone back. I'm leaving it here on the counter. There are videos inside showing the cave, the alien environment, everything. Once you get the phone, you'll understand. Come to Jibai Township, Yunnan, the old Wang seed store. I hung up, placed the phone on the counter in the most visible spot possible, and turned to the cart. Seeds, pesticide, a sickle, a hoe head, bottled water. Good haul. Get on the scale. I pointed at the big platform scale the shop used for weighing seed bags. We need to weigh everything together. Maximum 72 kilos. Move. I left 1 kilo of safety margin. Suli jumped on the scale with the cart. The needle swung and settled. 70.3 kilograms. We had 1.7 kilos to spare. My eyes landed on a few bags of white rabbit milk candy sitting on the counter. Sugar is pure calories. And more importantly, candy would comfort Su Yao, who was alone and terrified right now. I grabbed the bag and stuffed it into Su Li's arms. Hold this. Then Su Li spotted something I'd missed, a vacuum-sealed pack of homemade farm sausage hanging by the counter. About 1.5 pounds. This is meat, she said, eyes lit up, and snatched it. I blinked, then nodded. Nice catch. 71.9 kilograms. Perfect. Right at the limit. 5 seconds left. Outside the shutter door, concerned citizens were shouting. People inside, listen up. We called the police. They'll be here any minute. Open this door. Su Li and I looked at each other. In that moment, we shared this strange feeling, like 2 outlaws on the run, a Bonnie and Clyde who robbed farm supply stores instead of banks. She hugged the candy and sausage tight against her chest with one arm and gripped the cart's edge with the other. The countdown hit 0. The world warped around us, and we vanished. Sometime later, police broke open the shutter door. Inside the small shop, a TV was playing the news. An old phone sat on the counter, and not a single person was anywhere to be found. Just like no one had ever been there at all. I didn't see any of this myself. I only found out later what happened on Earth after Su Li and I vanished from that seed store. It took the local police less than 5 minutes to arrive. The detective in charge, a 20-year veteran named Chun Li, had never seen anything like it. 2 wild-looking people had been reported robbing a farm supply shop and threatening the old lady who ran it. But when they pulled open the metal shutter, the store was completely empty. No criminals, no trace of escape. Just a TV playing the news, a cracked old phone sitting on the counter, and a diamond necklace worth more than the entire shop left behind with the confused grandma outside. The young officer on scene pointed out the obvious. The store only had 1 door, no back exit, no broken walls, no tunnel. Unless the suspects could walk through solid matter, there was no explanation for how they'd disappeared. Then the helicopters came. A massive, unmarked black chopper appeared overhead. Armed operatives in full tactical gear rappelled down on ropes, carrying weapons and strange instruments nobody at the local station had ever seen. The leader flashed credentials from something called Division 305 Special Investigation Bureau, a department that apparently only existed in rumors. He told the local police to clear the area, have everyone sign confidentiality agreements, and forget everything they'd seen. They sealed off 5 kilometers around the store and jammed all signals. Meanwhile, Auntie Sue had gone absolutely crazy after our phone call cut off. She'd jumped on her private jet and flown straight to Yunnan. But before she could even leave the airport in Kunming, a convoy of black government sedans pulled right onto the runway and blocked her path. A refined-looking middle-aged man stepped out and introduced himself as Li Yaodong, a special consultant from the security services, also an academician. He assured her that both daughters were confirmed alive and not in immediate danger. Then he asked her to come with them to a hidden base deep in the mountains. After passing through 3 heavily armed checkpoints, full-body scans, and identity verification, she was led into a conference room. One entire wall was a giant display screen. Around the long table sat military generals in uniform and scientists in white lab coats. They played the videos from my phone on the big screen. Su Yao's tearful face appeared first, dirty, hair a mess, crying into the camera. "Hello, police officers. Mama, it's Yao Yao." Auntie Sue covered her mouth and bit down on her teeth to keep from sobbing, terrified she'd missed something important. Then, my face appeared. The shaky footage showed the glowing cave walls, the red portal, the sealed entrance, the cart of supplies, and Suli hauling rocks in the background. My voice echoed through the conference room. "This is an alien planet." I repeat, an alien planet. The video was only 2 minutes long. It ended with me asking Auntie Sue to burn my unpaid tutoring wages as spirit money and reading out my bank account number. The screen went dark. The room was dead silent. Auntie Sue asked the question everyone was thinking. Could the country bring us back? Li Yaodong gave her a solemn nod. "The nation will not abandon anyone. We will do everything in our power." Then he got into the technical findings. Despite the low-quality video, their top physicists and biologists had already pulled out critical data. By analyzing the sound wave frequencies in my voice and the environmental details visible in the footage, they concluded that the cave's oxygen content was extremely high, exceeding even Earth's Cretaceous period levels. Auntie Sue understood the implication immediately. She was highly educated. Wouldn't they suffer oxygen poisoning? Or at least oxygen intoxication? Li Yaodong nodded, then shook his head. Under normal circumstances, yes. Any human exercising in that environment would quickly develop toxic reactions and die. But in the video, Su Li and I were doing intense physical labor without showing any symptoms at all. His conclusion, during the transport process, or the instant we arrived on that planet, our bodies had been modified by some supernatural force we couldn't understand. This modification adapted us to survive the alien environment and enhanced our physical capabilities. The generals and scientists around the table leaned forward with obvious interest. Then came the bad news about the transport mechanism. At the seed store crime scene, they deployed their most sensitive instruments searching for any trace of alien soil, bacteria, or even air particles. They found absolutely nothing. The teleportation process was apparently so clean that it automatically filtered out or erased every trace of non-native material. That meant they couldn't study the alien planet through physical samples. They had nothing to work with. Auntie Sue asked the obvious question. If Suli had been brought back to Earth, why couldn't she just stay? Why did she have to go back? Li Yaodong explained that the transport mechanism wasn't fully understood yet, but they believed that when the timer hit 0, everyone was automatically pulled back to the alien cave, no exceptions. The general at the head of the table knocked on the desk and cut straight to the plan. Li Yaodong laid it out. Nationwide surveillance. Wait and intercept. Since they couldn't go to us and couldn't track the portal's signal, they'd use the only method left, brute force coverage. I'd said the portal had a 72-hour cooldown, so the next opening would be in 3 days. The destination was random and unpredictable, but the moment I appeared anywhere within the country's borders, anywhere with people, I'd leave a trace. He pulled up a map of China on the giant screen. My face, Su Li's face, and Su Yao's face had already been loaded into the national surveillance network at the highest priority alert level. Every camera in every train station, airport, shopping mall, and rural village was watching. If any lens caught our faces, or if any citizen reported people appearing out of thin air, the system would trigger an alarm within 3 seconds. The nearest patrol units, SWAT teams, or even military garrisons would race to the scene with supplies. They probably wouldn't make it in time for just 3 minutes, but it was all they had. The meeting paused. The general went to a small room, picked up a red encrypted phone, and dialed a number known only to a handful of people in the country. Sir, confirmed. Targets are on an extrasolar planet. Transport mechanism confirmed, stable and repeating. Requesting authorization to mobilize all resources. Establish a 3-person special support unit. 2 seconds of silence. Then a commanding voice. Approved. Whatever the cost, provide our full support. This is also a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. It could be humanity's first step toward the stars. The general returned to the conference room and issued his orders. Within 24 hours, they needed to prepare a standardized single-soldier supply package, foolproof, requiring no instructions. High-density compressed food, medicine, lightweight weapons, and universal survival tools. These packages would be distributed to every police station and military armory across the entire country. In 3 days, all military and police forces nationwide would receive orders to deploy on dispersed patrol routes. The moment anyone spotted me, anywhere, local personnel were to immediately shove these supply packages into my hands, no questions asked. The general turned to Auntie Sue, his voice sincere. Ma'am, please rest assured. While we can't bring them home yet, the nation will become their strongest support line. The moment Lin Bei appears on our soil, even once, we will put the best equipment we have into his hands. Next time, they will not go back armed with just sickles and hoes. Su Li and I slammed back into the cave, right next to the portal that had already faded back to dark red. I was gasping for air, my left hand white-knuckled on the cart handle, fingers aching from gripping so hard during the transport. My right hand was still holding Su Li's. Our fingers were interlocked. She was practically pressed against my side. The sudden loss of gravity during transport had thrown her into me, and she hadn't let go yet. The dizziness faded. She opened her eyes, recognized the cave walls, and knew we were back in this hellhole. But something was different this time. She didn't look as crushed as before. Maybe it was the heavy cart of supplies. Maybe it was something else. She looked down at our hands clasped together. I noticed her staring and loosened my grip slightly. She yanked her hand back like she'd touched a hot stove. So, where's my sister? Where's that idiot Su Yao? She turned her face away, but even in the dim mineral glow I could see her cheeks had gone bright red, like a ripe apple. She mumbled something about being glad we made it back, trying to cover up whatever had just happened with her heartbeat. I didn't have time for whatever that was. I looked toward our sleeping area in the corner of the cave. Su Yao, there she was. A tiny figure curled up in a ball on the ground, completely buried under my jacket. She'd pulled it over herself like a blanket, her whole body hidden under the fabric. I could tell she'd been breathing in the smell of the jacket, my smell, trying to pretend I was still there. In her hands was a small piece of ham she'd cut for herself with a knife. Even though her eyes were swollen from crying like steamed buns, she was still eating. In this terrifying space where she'd been left completely alone, only the ham and whatever traces of me lingered on that jacket had kept her from losing her mind. She'd been pretending I was still there, still protecting her. When she heard voices outside the jacket, the shivering pile of clothes shifted. A dirty little face poked out, tear tracks running through the grime. She looked like an abandoned puppy left on the side of a road. Then she saw us. Her dead, hollow eyes exploded with light. Lin Bei, big brother. Sister, she shoved the ham into a bag, scrambled up on all fours, didn't even bother putting on shoes. Bare feet slapping on cold rock and dirt, she came stumbling toward us at full speed. Su Li saw her baby sister's wrecked face, and her heart broke. She rushed forward, opened both arms wide, smiling warmly. Xiao Yao? Don't be scared, we're BA. A gust of wind blew past her. Su Yao didn't even see her sister standing there with arms wide open. She dodged around Su Li with a nimble sidestep and crashed straight into my chest like a small cannonball. Wah! Lin Bei, big brother. She locked both arms around my waist, buried her face against my chest, and bawled her eyes out. You came back. I thought you abandoned me. There were sounds in the cave, and I was so scared. I stumbled back half a step from the impact, let go of the cart, and awkwardly patted her back. Okay. We're back, aren't we? Meanwhile, Su Li was still frozen in place with her arms spread wide in the universal, give me a hug, pose. Nobody was hugging her. She stood there stiff as a board, staring at her sister clinging to me. And I swear I could see imaginary crows slowly flying over her head. She looked at Su Yao wrapped around me, and something weird flickered across her face. As twins, they apparently had some kind of emotional connection, a sixth sense between them. And right now, Suli could feel what was radiating from her sister, a blind, total, unconditional dependence and trust toward me. And mixed in with it was something that made her cheeks burn, a kind of hopeful, fluttery anticipation. Suli's heart skipped. The feeling was so intense, she couldn't tell anymore if it was coming from Su Yao or from herself. She'd been gripping my hand tightly during the transport too, pressed against me. And in that moment, she genuinely felt that as long as this person was here, even hell wasn't so terrifying. Suli, snap out of it. She pinched herself hard. He's the guy who works you like a slave. How can you think about him like that? The dangerous pull of that dependency frightened her. And her sister, a daughter of the Su family, was falling for some tutor far too easily. This had to stop. Now. Suli marched over, grabbed Su Yao by the back of her collar like picking up a kitten, and ripped her off me. Su Yao, get over here. Men and women should keep proper distance. You're not a child anymore. Stop throwing yourself at men. Have some dignity. Su Yao, mid-sob, blinked in total confusion. Huh? Sis, why are you being so mean? She'd felt it through their twin connection too. Suli's emotions were a mess. Anger, panic, and something she couldn't quite name all tangled together. Su Yao wiped her nose, then looked at her sister with those big, innocent eyes. Sis, why is your face so red? Shut up. It's the heat. Suli glared daggers, shoved Su Yao behind her body like a human shield blocking her from me, and tried desperately to pretend she wasn't flustered. I watched this whole bizarre scene and had absolutely no idea what was going on. What was the princess's problem now? But honestly, as long as it didn't interfere with work, I didn't care about decoding the female brain. All right, enough with the family drama. Come help sort the supplies. Everything we brought back this time. This is what decides whether we live or die going forward. Suli pulled herself together, put her Ice Queen mask back on, and walked over with Su Yao. She made a point of keeping some distance between us. I pulled the cart to a flat spot and started the inventory. Biggest haul this time. Over 200 bags of seeds, all different varieties. This is our future. Amoxicillin, cephalosporin antibiotics. These are life-saving medicine. Suli, find the driest spot in the cave and store them carefully. If they get damp, they're useless. Yunnan Baiyao spray for Su Yao. I saw her knees are all scraped up from crawling around. Suli calmed down as she watched me organize everything with that same steady, methodical approach. The post-adventure excitement faded and her practical side kicked in. I pulled out the sickle and hoe from the bottom of the cart, unwrapped the newspaper around them. The sickle blade caught the light, brand new, freshly sharpened, gleaming. Starting tomorrow, we're upgrading operations. Suli, your hands are long and elegant, but it's time they learned how to swing a sickle. Then I reached into the corner of the cart and pulled out a black plastic bag. This was something I'd grabbed at the very last second, snatched from behind the counter. I still wasn't sure why a 70-year-old grandma had these in her shop, but I wasn't about to question my luck. I held the bag out to Suli. Here, sanitary pads. I checked. There's daytime ones, nighttime ones, and some kind of pull-up type. Use them sparingly. Can't exactly plant these. Once they're gone for real. Suli's face went red as she took the bag. She clearly hadn't expected me to think of that in the middle of our 3-minute robbery spree. She hugged the bag to her chest, and the corner of her mouth curved up just slightly. Thank you. Don't mention it. We're all in the same mess here. I waved her off and walked toward the cave entrance. Everyone rest today. Recover your strength. Starting tomorrow, we officially begin our farming operation on alien soil. I turned back to look at both sisters, and I couldn't help the excitement in my eyes. This trip, the government found out about us. Suli talked to her mom. I left the phone with all our evidence. So next time the portal opens, if it drops us anywhere in China and they manage to find us, what's waiting for us won't be some old lady's seed shop. It'll be a full military supply drop. Next morning, my internal clock woke me up right on schedule. Immediately felt that familiar weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Looked down. Same story as every other morning. The twin GPS systems had locked onto me again overnight. I reached down with practiced hands, grabbed Suli by the upper thigh, and shifted her off to the side. Then I pushed Su Yao's head off my shoulder. At this point, I'd completely given up trying to fix this problem. I'd yelled at them. I'd lectured them. But the second they fell asleep, it was like they had autopilot engaged, homing in on the only heat source in the cave. Their bodies just gravitated toward mine no matter what. I complained about it, sure. But honestly, deep down I didn't really mind that much. In a place like this, alien planet, monsters everywhere, surviving day by day, waking up to two warm bodies pressed against you was one of the only small comforts in an otherwise miserable existence. I wasn't about to admit that out loud, though. I sat up and stretched. My whole body felt hot and restless. I rubbed my face and felt a sharp sting on my forehead. I pulled out a fruit knife and used the flat of the blade as a makeshift mirror. Are you kidding me? A pimple, right between my eyebrows, a big red angry one. Too much pent-up energy with nowhere to release it, apparently. The irony of getting acne on an alien planet while sleeping between two beautiful girls was not lost on me. Half an hour later, I was crouched at the cave entrance, that tiny half-meter-wide crawl hole that was our only connection to the outside world. This was the moment I'd been building toward. I shoved my hand out through the opening, past the rocks and brush, and plunged my fingers into the ground outside. I dug my nails deep into the soil beneath the thick layer of fallen leaves, grabbed a fistful, and yanked my arm back inside. In the shaft of sunlight streaming through the entrance, I opened my palm and stared at what I was holding. My eyes went wide. My heart started pounding. The soil was jet black, oil black. It had a rich, earthy smell that was almost intoxicating. I rubbed it between my fingers, silky smooth, moist, no grit or sand mixed in. When I squeezed it, it felt slippery, almost greasy, like I could wring oil out of it if I pressed hard enough. This wasn't ordinary dirt. This was black soil, the kind that forms over millions of years in primeval forests, where countless generations of fallen leaves, dead branches, and animal remains pile up layer after layer, decomposing and fermenting until the earth itself becomes unbelievably rich. On Earth, soil like this is called the hermes of dirt, the kind where you could stick a chopstick in the ground and a bamboo tree would grow from it. We can survive. My hands were literally trembling with excitement. I'd been terrified that alien soil would be too alkaline or too barren to grow Earth crops. But this wasn't barren. This was a bottomless granary overflowing with nutrients. With soil like this, I wouldn't just be growing a few vegetables to feed 3 people. Given enough hands, I could build an agricultural empire on this alien planet. Back inside the cave, the mood shifted to something tense and oddly emotional. I was about to do something I'd never done before. Actually leave the cave and venture into the alien jungle to scout the area and look for a water source. Su Li and Su Yao had decided the best way to protect me was to turn me into a human tank using school textbooks as armor plating. They were stuffing books into every gap in my clothing. Put one here too. Su Li's eyes were red as she carefully wedged a textbook inside my jacket over my chest. And the back. Don't forget the back. Su Yao was trying to jam 2 of the thickest books between my shirt and my waistband. They circled around me, cramming every notebook, dictionary, and test paper they could find into my clothes. It was the only armor they could think of. By the time they were done, I looked like a bloated Michelin tire man. Both of them were teary-eyed, staring at me like I was marching off to war and never coming back. Okay, that's enough. I was having trouble breathing from the compression. I pushed Su Yao away. She was trying to stuff a dictionary down my pant leg. If you put any more in, I'll be walking like a zombie. How am I supposed to run from anything? I tested my range of motion, which was now severely limited, and thumped my chest where the textbook was. It made a solid thunk-thunk-thunk sound. This is fine. If something big takes a swipe at me, it might absorb a hit or 2. Besides, I'm only going a short distance from the entrance to check things out and look for water. I won't go far. I adjusted the blowtorch and sickle hanging from my belt, keeping my expression relaxed to calm them down. You 2 stay in the cave and sort all those seed packets by type. No matter what you hear outside, don't come out. Understand? Su Li was fighting hard to keep her fear in check. She bit her lip and reached up to straighten my collar, fussing over it like a worried wife seeing her husband off. You have to be careful. If anything dangerous shows up, just run back. Don't try to be a hero. Su Yao grabbed the hem of my jacket with her small fingers, looking up at me with those enormous, pleading eyes. Lin Bei, big brother, come back soon. Looking at these 2 girls, spoiled princesses who'd never worried about anything harder than a math test a week ago, now with their entire world of concern focused on whether I'd make it back alive from a short scouting trip. Something warm moved through my chest. So naturally, I decided to push my luck. You're both so worried about me. Shouldn't there be some kind of send-off? I grinned, turned my head to the side, and pointed at my cheek with one finger. Come on. Departure ceremony. One kiss each. Give me a power-up buff before I head out. A few days ago, Suli would have rolled her eyes into the back of her skull and told me to keep dreaming. But, after days of sleeping pressed together for warmth, after everything we'd been through, after watching me prepare to walk into genuine danger, her face turned crimson, red as a ripe strawberry, but she didn't refuse. She stood on her tiptoes, squeezed her eyes shut, and planted a quick peck on my left cheek. Lightning fast, barely a touch, and she pulled away immediately. Suyao wasn't about to be outdone by her sister. Her dirty little face flushing red, she leaned in and planted a firm, loud kiss on my right cheek. An actual, moi, sound echoed through the cave. The second it was over, Suyao clapped her hands over her face and spun around to run away. Oh no you don't. I was faster. I grabbed Suyao's arm before she could escape, and my other arm hooked around Su Li who was already trying to retreat. You two get to kiss me, but I can't return the favor? That's not how this works. Before either of them could react, I leaned down and pressed a solid, loud kiss right onto Su Yao's soft, chubby cheek. Then I turned and planted an equally firm one on Su Li's flushed face. Two loud smacks echoed through the cave. Huh. Buffs fully stacked. I'm out. I let go of both of them before they could explode, laughing as I dropped to my stomach and wriggled through the half-meter exit hole with the agility of someone who'd practiced it many times. Behind me in the cave, I left two girls whose faces were redder than baboon backsides. I could hear nothing from inside. Complete silence. They'd both short-circuited. What I didn't know, and Suli told me about much later, was what happened between them after I left. Suli stood there touching her burning cheek, frozen solid. He actually did it. And in front of her sister, no less. Suyao was hiding behind her hands with only her huge watery eyes visible, completely lost. The twins looked at each other. The air between them was thick with an awkward, unnamed feeling, embarrassment, confusion, and something sweeter they didn't want to acknowledge. That twin empathy thing kicked in again. Suli could feel from her sister's side not just shyness, but an unmistakable thread of sweetness. And buried in her own chest, underneath all the panic and outrage of being kissed without permission, she found the exact same feeling lurking there. She closed her eyes in despair. That buff I joked about, it had actually landed, right on their hearts. And neither of them knew what to do about it. I crawled out through the narrow exit hole, stood up straight, and took my first real breath of alien air. It was sweet, almost intoxicating. The high oxygen concentration hit my lungs and made me feel buzzed, like I'd had a shot of something strong. My whole body surged with energy. I looked back at where we'd been hiding. Our cave was at the base of a massive mountain. The dark rock face was smothered in thick vines and deep green moss. The entrance, that tiny half-meter crawl hole, looked like an insignificant pore on the skin of some giant beast. You'd walk right past it without noticing. That was good. That's what had kept us alive. I stepped onto the thick carpet of fallen leaves. My sneaker made a soft crunch. Just one ordinary step. But my heart was hammering out of my chest. One small step for me, one giant leap for humanity. Yeah, my inner middle schooler came out. I couldn't help it. No audience, no cameras, no live stream. But I was genuinely standing on alien soil, on another planet orbiting alien suns. Whether the Earth humans I represented would ever become colonizers of this new world, that was still an open question. I calmed myself down and started actually observing my surroundings. This was a true primeval forest, not the kind of old growth you see in nature documentaries on Earth. This was something else entirely. The smallest trees around me were over 100 meters tall. The trunks were as thick as those 1,000-year-old redwoods I'd seen in documentaries, covered in deep brown bark with wrinkled patterns that made them look ancient beyond comprehension. Overhead, the canopies were so massive and dense they blocked out most of the sky. Sunlight could only squeeze through tiny gaps between the leaves, falling in dramatic golden shafts. Perfect Tyndall effect light beams cutting through the humid air. Everything here was oversized. A single fallen leaf on the ground was half the size of a door. I picked one up. It was thick and dense, surprisingly heavy. I tugged on it hard to test its strength. It didn't tear. The texture was tight and fibrous, almost like processed leather. My brain immediately started working. The temperature had been dropping gradually over the past few days. Nights were getting genuinely cold, and our clothes were falling apart. The sisters' expensive school uniforms and short skirts were in tatters after a week of cave life. Their torn stockings weren't providing any warmth at all, they were just providing visual interest, which was not helpful for my concentration. I need to drag a bunch of these leaves back to the cave, I muttered, stroking my chin. My mind started sketching designs, grass skirts, or maybe leaf bikini sets. This was about survival and warmth, obviously, but also about building civilization for our little three-person tribe. Every great civilization needs clothing, right? I pictured Su Li's haughty face paired with a wild grass skirt outfit and couldn't stop the grin from spreading across my face. Cultural development was important work. I kept scanning the area. It was surprisingly quiet. No large predators visible anywhere nearby. Just the occasional bird call in the distance. Long, clear notes that sounded similar to a cuckoo, with impressive carrying power that echoed through the massive tree trunks. Floating through the air were colorful, glowing orbs. I stared at them for a moment before realizing those were butterflies. Butterflies the size of human heads. Their wings shimmered with bioluminescence, and every time they flapped, they shed a fine sparkling powder that drifted down like fairy dust. Beautiful in a deeply unsettling, alien way. So this is what an alien ecosystem looks like. I tilted my head back, wanting to see this world's sky through the gaps in the canopy above. What I saw froze me solid. My mouth dropped open wide enough to fit a fist inside. Holy shit! Directly overhead, hanging in the sky like something out of a science fiction movie, were two golden suns. One larger, one smaller, close together, blazing with light so intense they painted the entire sky in shades of brilliant gold. But that wasn't the most insane part. Way out on the distant horizon, there was a third sun. This one glowed with a cold, eerie blue light, mysterious and icy, completely different from the warm golden pair above. It hung low on the skyline like a frozen eye watching over this alien world. 1, 2, 3. I counted 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Cold sweat soaked through my underwear. A 3-star system? The implications hit me like a freight train. 3 suns. This planet orbited in a system with 3 stars. The physics alone were mind-bending. The gravitational dynamics, the light cycles, the seasonal patterns would be nothing like Earth. I was so overwhelmed I literally forgot to breathe for a few seconds. Then a familiar sound snapped me back to reality. Bees, that low, droning hum. Exactly like the sound a mosquito makes when it buzzes past your ear at 3 in the morning, except amplified to a terrifying degree. I whipped my head toward the source. There it was. A mosquito, black and white striped, the size of an adult man's fist, wobbling through the air on transparent wings that hummed with each beat. Its proboscis, that needle-like mouth, was horrifyingly long, glinting in the sunlight like a surgical instrument designed for puncturing thick hide. It had smelled me. Fresh meat. The exotic aroma of earth-born human blood, a scent this alien mosquito had never encountered before. I was premium delivery food, and it was coming in for the meal. You want to suck my blood? I smirked, and my hand was already reaching for the blowtorch at my belt. No hesitation. 0. Maybe in your next life. Click. Whoosh! A blue tongue of flame erupted from the nozzle, engulfing the giant mosquito mid-flight. The insect didn't even have time to change direction. Sizzle. Pop. The moment the high-temperature flame made contact, the mosquito's body burst open like a water balloon hitting hot oil. A loud, wet cracking sound echoed through the trees. Bits of charred insects scattered. A burnt, acrid smell filled the air. The smoking remains of the fist-sized mosquito hit the ground with a sad little splat, legs still twitching weakly. I blew across the nozzle of the blowtorch, even though there was no smoke coming from it. Just felt like the right thing to do. First blood. Secured. Alien survival rule number 1. Strike first. Ask questions never. Brought to you by Lin Bei. After torching that first mosquito, I kept the blowtorch in hand and headed into the forest. About 20 meters from our cave entrance, I stopped and looked back. The tiny crawl hole was practically invisible among the rocks. I waved toward it. I knew those two were watching from inside. Wait for me to come back loaded up, ladies. The area between the cave and the tree line was a flat stretch of rocky ground, about 20 meters wide, backed against the mountain. My mind was already drawing blueprints. Someday, when we had more hands, we could clear these rocks, cut some timber, and build a proper wooden cabin right here. No more living in that dark cave. That would be real living. With those dreams in my head, I stepped into the primeval forest. The light dropped instantly. Those enormous canopies were like giant umbrellas blocking out the three suns, creating a hot, humid twilight underneath. The air was thick and wet. Bzz, bzz, more welcoming committee. Three giant mosquitoes tried to ambush me from different angles. I'd already gotten good at tracking them by sound. 3 quick bursts from the blowtorch. 3 smoking carcasses hit the ground. I stomped out each one carefully. Last thing I needed was to start a forest fire in this primeval jungle. Burning down our entire neighborhood on day 1 of exploration would have been a spectacular way to die. I kept moving, eyes scanning for good planting spots and water sources. Then something caught my eye about 10 meters to my left. Among the oversized green plants, there was one that stood out. It had a cluster of blood-red flowers at the top. The petals were semi-transparent and crystalline, glowing faintly with red light. The leaves grew in groups of 5 with serrated edges, and the veins running through them shimmered with a golden color. I squinted at it. The shape was incredibly familiar. That's a giant version of a ginseng plant. I'd never dug up wild ginseng in my life, but I'd seen pictures in textbooks. This thing was identical to earth ginseng in every way except it was dozens of times larger, and its flowers glowed. My heart started racing. If the flower is this big, how massive is the root underneath? If this really is ginseng, growing to this size, it must be tens of thousands of years old. Maybe it's become a spirit at this point. I was joking to myself, but my hands were already gripping the sickle tighter. Spirit or not, I was digging it up. Imagine bringing this back and making soup for those 2 malnourished princesses. They'd be bursting with energy. I crept forward like a thief, holding my breath, getting closer step by careful step. I could already see the dewdrops on the flower petals. I raised the sickle, ready to start digging. Then the plant moved. The red flower trembled violently. Before I could process what was happening, the soil at its base exploded outward. A yellowish-brown root burst out of the ground, and it had arms and legs, and something resembling a face. It was about half a meter tall, covered in stringy root hairs, with 2 thick root legs that kicked in the air as it launched itself free from the earth. The moment it landed, it took off running through the underbrush at an absolutely ridiculous speed, its red flower bouncing and shaking on top of its head. What the? It actually became a spirit. I stood there frozen with the sickle raised, watching a sentient ginseng sprint away through the grass like a startled mouse. Hey, your running form is terrible. You're swinging the same arm and leg on each side. The words left my mouth before I could think about whether an alien root vegetable understood Chinese. Then I felt the ground vibrate beneath my feet. That tremor wasn't from the ginseng. That little half-meter plant didn't have the mass for it. This was something much, much bigger. Rustle, rustle, crash. I spun toward a wall of giant leaves to my left. The 2 to 3 meter tall plants were thrashing violently, like a bulldozer was plowing through them. Snort, snort, that sound. I knew that sound. It was exactly like the pigs at the farm back home. That wet, grunting, breathing noise, except amplified many times over. A wave of rank, musky animal stench rolled downwind and hit me in the face so hard I nearly vomited. Every hair on my body stood straight up. Something enormous was coming out. Run! I abandoned every plan I'd made. Planting locations, house-building dreams, ginseng soup. All of it evaporated in an instant. I spun around and sprinted back the way I came, running harder than I'd ever run in my entire life. I'd barely taken 2 steps when the wall of vegetation behind me exploded apart. Shredded leaves filled the air like green confetti. I looked back. One look. That one look nearly separated my soul from my body. Crashing through the tree line was a creature 3 to 4 meters tall, built like a heavy-duty truck. It had the head of a wild boar, but scaled up to nightmare proportions. 2 curved tusks jutted from its mouth like scimitars, each over a meter long, glowing with a sickly yellow sheen. Its body was covered in coarse black bristles so thick and rigid they looked like steel needle armor. And it had 6 legs. 6. Not 4 like an earth boar. The front 4 were thick and powerful, built for charging and tearing up earth. The back pair were longer and more streamlined, clearly designed for acceleration. This thing was an organic battering ram with a turbo boost. Its basketball-sized eyes locked onto me. I could see the moment it made its decision. Forget the runaway ginseng. This hairless 2-legged thing looked like a much easier snack. Snort. All 6 legs fired at once. The ground shook with each stride. It charged straight at me. Go to hell. I was running so fast my lungs were on fire. I screamed nonsense over my shoulder. Don't chase me. My meat is sour. I taste terrible, as if a prehistoric alien megapig understood Mandarin dietary preferences. 20 meters of rocky ground between the forest edge and the cave. 20 meters that normally felt like nothing. Right now it stretched out like an ocean. My foot hit a loose rock. My ankle twisted with a sickening crunch. Sprained. White-hot pain shot up my leg. I stumbled, nearly went down. But I couldn't stop. Even if I had to roll the rest of the way, I was getting back to that cave. I was halfway across the rocks when the trembling behind me suddenly became 10 times worse. Not truck-level shaking anymore. Earthquake level. I looked back one more time. The boar that had been chasing me, that terrifying 3-meter-tall monster, had stopped at the edge of the tree line. It was standing still, trembling, cowering, like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong. Because behind it, emerging slowly from the shadows of the forest, was something that made my brain refuse to function. It was a mountain. A moving, breathing, black mountain. 3 stories tall. Every step it took made the surrounding giant trees sway and groan. Its tusks were like pillars reaching toward the sky, and hanging from them were the remains of animals I couldn't identify, bones, scraps of hide, bits of things that used to be alive. The truck that had been chasing me was a baby, an unweaned piglet. This was the mother. The megaboar, the real one, lowered its massive head and glanced at me scrambling across the rocks. Its eyes were cold and dismissive, the way you'd look at an ant crawling across your kitchen counter. Not worth the effort. Then it opened its mouth. R-O-A-R-R. The roar hit me like a physical wall. I felt the sound waves slam into my chest. My eardrums screamed in protest. Rocks vibrated under my hands and knees. I forgot about my sprained ankle. Adrenaline deleted the pain from my nervous system. I scrambled on all 4s toward the half-meter cave entrance like a desperate animal. Lin Bei, hurry! 2 pairs of pale, small hands were already reaching out from the darkness of the crawl hole. Su Li and Su Yao had been watching the whole time. They'd heard the roaring and their faces had gone white with terror, but they didn't retreat. They shoved their arms out as far as they could reach. I threw myself at the entrance. Before I could even start squeezing through, for hands grabbed fistfuls of my shirt collar. Yao Yao pull, Su Li screamed. I have no idea where those 2 found the strength. These were girls who couldn't do 10 push-ups 3 days ago. But in that moment, they hauled my 140-some pounds through that narrow hole like they were pulling a giant radish out of the ground. I tumbled inside and collapsed flat on the cave floor, gasping so hard I thought my heart was going to climb out of my throat and make a run for it too. Outside, the baby boar wasn't ready to give up its dessert. It trotted up to the cave entrance, snorting and grunting, and shoved its long snout into the gaps between the rocks blocking the hole. A blast of hot, rotten breath sprayed into the cave. The 3 of us pressed ourselves against the far wall, not breathing, not moving, frozen like statues. We stayed like that until the snuffling finally stopped and the ground-shaking footsteps faded into the distance. The baby boar didn't leave. It stayed right at our cave entrance, shoving its massive snout into the gaps between the rocks, sniffing obsessively. The smell of our ham had hooked it. It wasn't going anywhere until it got what it wanted. Su Yao was curled up in Su Li's arms, face white as paper, both hands clamped over her mouth to keep from making any sound. Su Li was rigid with fear, one hand gripping the edge of my shirt, looking at me with desperate eyes, waiting for me to do something. Outside, the mother, that 3-story-tall nightmare, was pacing nearby, shaking the cave ceiling with every step, raining down pebbles and dust on our heads while she waited for her baby to finish playing. I sat against the wall and caught my breath. My heart rate was back to normal, but the situation wasn't. That baby was the size of a truck, and it was determined. The rocks blocking our entrance could hold against this junior, but if the mother decided to take a shot, I wasn't confident the entrance would survive. I had to make this thing leave. I held up a finger to my lips. Shoo. Both girls nodded, barely breathing. I crept over to where we stored the seeds and supplies, ignoring the throbbing pain in my sprained ankle. There, sitting among the seed bags, were 5 green plastic bottles. Paraquat and dichlorvos. Pesticide. I'd grabbed them from the farm supply store almost as an afterthought. On Earth, this stuff was legendary. One sip could kill a full-grown man. Farmers drank it when they wanted to end things permanently. Even elephants couldn't survive it. But would it work on an alien beast with skin like armor plating and a stomach that probably digested rocks for fun? Only one way to find out. Since you won't leave, I muttered, staring at the bottles with cold eyes, let me treat you to some Earth specialty cuisine. I loosened all 5 caps, but didn't remove them. If I opened them fully, the sharp chemical smell might alert the boar or gas out everyone in the cave. I needed the liquid to leak out slowly, inside the animal's stomach, after it swallowed them. I crept to the entrance. That giant wet snout was still shoving between the rocks, black bristly hair glistening with moisture. The beast opened its jaws wide, trying to bite through a chunk of stone blocking the entrance. The moment that enormous mouth gaped open, I made my move. Catch. 5 plastic bottles, launched one after another with the precision of free throws, sailed straight into that gaping maw. The baby boar felt several round, hard objects rolled down its throat. It didn't think anything was wrong. For a creature this size, a beast that probably chewed through actual rocks when it was hungry, a few little plastic bottles were nothing. If anything, they had a nice crunch to them, like some kind of nut. It pulled its snout out of the cave entrance, tilted its head skyward, and swallowed all 5 bottles whole, without even chewing. It burped once, seemingly savoring the aftertaste. I scrambled backward the moment the bottles left my hand, pulling both girls deep into the cave. Did it eat them? Suli whispered, barely audible. Swallowed all 5. Didn't even chew. I felt a cold smile pull at the corner of my mouth. Give it a few minutes. Once those caps leak open and the pesticide hits its stomach lining, that'll be the last meal it ever regrets. Outside, the baby boar poked around the entrance a bit more, but the rocks were too solid and whatever it had just swallowed was making its belly feel warm and cozy. It gave up trying to eat us tonight. It snorted twice, a sound that seemed to say, I'll bring the whole family tomorrow, and finally pulled away. The sound of its hooves slowly faded. Will it come back for revenge? Su Yao whispered. Even if it does, we had no choice. That thing was never going to leave as long as it could smell our food. Either we killed it, or it would have eventually broken in and killed us. I leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. As long as it doesn't die on our doorstep, I'm not admitting anything. Let it file a police report if it wants. 10 minutes later, I was sitting with my back to the cave wall while the girls tended to me. Suli was kneading the knots out of my shoulders. Su Yao was carefully spraying Yunnan Bai Yao onto my swollen ankle. SSS. Gentle. Does it hurt a lot? Lin Bei big brother. Su Yao blew softly on the swelling, her face full of concern. It's fine. No bone damage. Just a sprain. 2 days of rest. And, from deep in the jungle, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the air. Squel, not a roar. Not a battle cry. This was pure agony. A sound drenched in pain, terror, and desperation. The cry of a creature whose insides were being eaten alive by chemicals its body had never encountered in millions of years of evolution. Then came the crashing. Something massive was smashing blindly into trees. The sound of thick trunks snapping like chopsticks, the thunderous booms of a multi-ton body slamming into everything around it. Then another voice joined in. Deeper, more powerful, shaking with frantic rage, the mother. She could hear her baby dying, and there was nothing she could do about it. Su Yao clamped her hands over her ears. Even from this distance, hiding deep in our cave, the violence of those sounds was overwhelming. I listened to the agonized death throes and mentally set up an imaginary barbecue grill for the baby boar. 5 bottles of concentrated pesticide exploding simultaneously inside a stomach. I wondered if the toxins would contaminate the meat. TCH. What a waste. I clicked my tongue. A pig that size could have fed us for half a year. But the meat's probably poisoned now. 2 hours passed before the jungle finally went silent. The screaming and crashing stopped. Peace returned. Su Yao was reapplying spray to my ankle when it happened. Boom. A single, massive impact. Not thunder. Footsteps. Coming toward us. Boom, boom, boom. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Each step heavier than anything the baby had produced by an order of magnitude. Each impact like a sledgehammer hitting my ribcage. The mother was back. Every trace of calm vanished from my face. Ice flooded my veins. I stood up, ankle screaming, and limped to the entrance as fast as I could. Through the air hole I saw it. A mountain of black flesh, walking toward us one earth-shaking step at a time. 3 stories tall, blocking out both golden suns, casting our entire cave entrance into shadow. Its mouth was covered in fresh blood, and hanging from its left tusk, dangling like a grotesque ornament, was the severed head of its own baby. The piglet, the one I'd poisoned. No, 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 no. My back was instantly drenched in cold sweat. It's that smart. It figured out we did it. It's here for revenge. Losing a child makes any creature dangerous. Losing a child and knowing exactly who's responsible makes it something far worse. Move. Get back. Now. I spun around and grabbed the girls. Take water and food. Go deeper into the cave. Su Li's face was sheet white. What's happening? The baby's dead, and the mother came to settle the score. If it breaks through the entrance, we run deeper. Into the bat section. Bats are better than being crushed to paste by that thing. We scrambled. Su Li and Su Yao grabbed water bottles and seed bags while I snatched the blowtorch and dragged the supply cart toward the deeper tunnels. We'd barely made it 30 meters from the entrance when the first real hit landed. Crash! The entire mountain shook. The stones we'd stacked at the entrance exploded inward like cannonballs, ricocheting off cave walls and throwing sparks. Dust poured from the ceiling, blinding us. Su Yao screamed, dropped to the ground, and covered her head with both arms. Don't panic. It can't fit inside. The opening is too small for something that big. I was saying it with confidence I did not feel. Boom. The second hit was worse. Glowing mineral stones shook loose from the walls and crashed to the floor. The cave groaned like a living thing in pain. That insane beast was using its iron-hard skull and tusks like a battering ram, smashing the mountainside itself, trying to crack open the rock to dig us out. She wanted to rip this mountain apart and drag us out to bury alongside her dead child. Hold. Please hold. I was staring at the entrance, blowtorch in a white-knuckled grip, sweat pouring down my palm. And by some miracle it held. Whatever this alien rock was made of, it was impossibly tough. Each impact from hundreds or thousands of tons of charging megabore shook the entire cave and sent debris raining down, but the mountain itself barely chipped. The structure held like an iron fortress. The pounding continued for minutes that felt like hours. Every second was torture. Su Yao was sobbing silently into her hands. Su Li was pressed flat against the wall, trembling so violently I could hear her teeth chattering. Then the impact stopped. Heavy, rasping breathing echoed from outside. The beast was panting from exertion. Did it? Did it stop? Su Li's voice was barely a whisper. Did it give up? I didn't answer. I kept watching the entrance. An animal this intelligent doesn't just give up. I was right. The sliver of light coming through the entrance disappeared. The cave went completely dark. Then something appeared in the opening. A single eye. One bloodshot, crimson eye filled the entire entrance hole. It was bigger than a bus tire. The blood-red pupil stared straight down the length of the cave, 30 meters, directly at the 3 of us huddled in the dark. I felt like death itself had turned its gaze on me. There was no animal stupidity in that eye, no mindless rage. What I saw was cold, calculated, burning hatred. The kind of hatred that comes from losing your child. It was memorizing us, our scent, our location, the exact position of this cave. It was making a promise. That enormous red eye watched us for a full minute. 60 seconds where none of us breathed, where our bodies went cold from the inside out, where we felt what it's like to be prey that's been marked for death. Then, finally, jirrrrrrr, one low, venomous growl. A sound that said, "This isn't over." A sound that said, "I know where you live." A sound that said, "You 3 are finished." The eye withdrew. The light returned to the entrance. Footsteps began again. Heavy. Deliberate. Boom. 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 Getting softer. Moving away. Farther and farther. Until the last tremor faded and the forest was silent again. We sat there for a long time before any of us could move. Our clothes were soaked through with cold sweat, clinging to our bodies like we'd been pulled from a river. "It's gone," I finally said, wiping the grime from my face with a shaking hand. It was gone, but it would be back. We all knew it, that I had made a promise, and animals like that keep their promises. Su Li and Su Yao shuffled behind me with practiced ease, like two little quails hiding from a hawk. "It's back again," they said, sounding less terrified and more just. Exhausted. It was the third day of this routine. That vengeful mother boar had become our worst neighbor. She showed up twice a day with the punctuality of a government employee, once when the suns rose, once when they set. Always after she'd eaten and had energy to spare. She'd slam into the mountainside a dozen or so times, not really trying to break through anymore, just making a point. Then she'd press that enormous bloodshot eye against the entrance and stare at us for a solid minute, radiating pure hatred. But the physical intimidation wasn't even the worst part. She'd waged biological warfare on us. She'd dragged her dead baby's carcass onto the rocky clearing in front of our cave and just left it there to rot under the triple suns. 3 days of alien heat turning a truck-sized pig corpse into a festering nightmare of decomposition. The smell was indescribable. And as if that wasn't enough, she'd turned our cave in trance into her personal toilet. Every visit, after she finished her ceremonial ramming session, she'd squat down and leave a mountain of dung right at our doorstep. Fresh pig feces mixed with the rotting corpse stench, all funneling through our air hole directly into the cave. "This is unlivable." I kicked a rock across the cave floor in frustration. My ankle had mostly healed over the past 2 days, thanks to rest and Su Yao's dedicated massage treatments. I could move freely again, but it didn't matter. None of us had dared set foot outside the cave for 3 straight days. Not with that monster standing guard. The one silver lining was this alien rock. It was genuinely indestructible. 3 days of a several hundred-ton beast ramming it with everything she had, and the cave entrance had barely a scratch. I'd even noticed that one of her massive tusks had snapped in half from the impacts. Meanwhile, our mountain didn't even shed a pebble, just a few white scrape marks on the surface. Absolute defense, I muttered, feeling slightly reassured. As long as she couldn't get in, we could outlast her. The pounding stopped on schedule. The giant red eye appeared at the entrance for its daily 1-minute death stare. Then the beast snorted angrily, chomped down on her own broken tusk fragment, and stomped away. The ground trembled with each retreating step until silence finally returned. I turned to look at the portal behind me. The red light was flickering, gradually shifting color, fading toward green. Charge level, 99.8%. Almost full. Almost time. I stood up and dusted off my pants, a cold determination settling into my bones. "Just you wait, you overgrown pork chop. This time when I go back, if I can get my hands on an automatic rifle, or even just a pistol, you're dead." I let out a bitter laugh. "You lost one piglet that you could make another of. We've been choking on your shit stench for 3 solid days. Don't talk to me about grudges. This score was getting settled. No question." Lin Bei, Su Li's soft voice came from behind me. I turned around. Both sisters were staring at me with those big, wet eyes. Su Li's were rimmed red. Su Yao was already crying, tears cutting little clean trails through the grime on her cheeks. I walked over to them. This time, without thinking about it, without any jokes or teasing, I opened both arms and pulled them in. Both of them, at the same time. Su Li didn't resist, didn't flinch, didn't call me a pervert. She just leaned her head against my shoulder and closed her eyes. Su Yao latched onto my waist like a koala, pressing her face against my chest the way she always did when she was scared. Days of living together in this cave, eating together, sleeping tangled up together, facing down a monster that wanted to crush us into paste, had changed what we were to each other. We weren't classmates anymore, weren't tutor and students. This was something else entirely. Something that only grows between people who've stared at death together and decided to keep each other alive anyway. I patted their backs gently, keeping my voice steady and low. "This time, I'm not taking you two with me." Su Yao's body went stiff against my chest. She started to protest, but I cut her off. "Listen, just listen. 3 minutes is too short. If you come along, all you'd get is a glimpse of your mom before getting yanked back here. You'd go through the transport sickness for nothing. But more importantly, I need to bring back heavy supplies this time. Maybe even weapons. Real weapons. If I'm carrying both of you, That's 90 pounds of weight I can't use for gear. We're running low on food. And until that pig out there is dealt with, we can't leave this cave. Can't farm. Can't find water. Can't do anything. I need firepower to kill that thing, and I can only get it if I go alone. Su Li pressed her lips together. I could see the struggle on her face. She wanted to come, wanted to see her mom, wanted to be on Earth even for just a few seconds. But she understood the math. She always understood the math, even when she hated it. We understand. She took a deep breath, fighting back tears, and reached up to straighten my collar the way she'd started doing before every trip. Her hands were trembling slightly. Be careful, right now on Earth. There must be a lot of people waiting for you. I smiled. A real smile, with genuine confidence behind it. Yeah, if I'm guessing right, whoever's waiting for me this time probably aren't the kind of people you see walking down the street. They're the kind you only see on television. Hum, right on cue. The portal behind me let out a deep, resonating hum. Green light flooded the cave. Charge complete. 3 minutes available. I kissed each of them, one on each cheek, quick and warm. They stood together watching me, tears streaming down their faces, hands clasped between them, holding each other up. Stay safe for 3 minutes. I'll be right back. I turned and walked into the green light without looking back. If I looked back, I might not have gone. The familiar dizziness faded. Before I even opened my eyes, my nose picked up something strange. The air smelled like freedom and chaos. Police sirens were screaming nonstop. Aggressive rap music was blasting from somewhere. Glass was shattering. People were howling with excitement like it was some kind of street festival from hell. This welcome party is a bit loud, isn't it? I opened my eyes with a big grin plastered on my face. I'd been mentally rehearsing this moment. Fully armed SWAT teams waiting for me. Or maybe beautiful Auntie Sue holding flowers, or scientists with equipment ready to study the portal. I'd spent 3 days breathing pig feces for this homecoming. I'm Lin Bei. I'm FINGBA. The words died in my throat. My smile froze. No red flags. No neat lines of soldiers. No welcome committee. I was standing on a wide, filthy street. A fire hydrant nearby was gushing water onto the sidewalk. Several smashed cars were belching black smoke. The air stank of burning rubber and something I couldn't identify. Where the hell am I? Is this still China? I looked up. A massive digital billboard in the distance displayed 2 words in English, Times Square. Next to it, a graffiti-covered sign read, NYPD. I blinked. Surely I'd read that wrong. I blinked again. The countdown on my retina was ticking steadily. 2:55. New York? My lips were trembling. New York? How in the absolute hell did I end up in America? The sheer wrongness of the situation nearly gave me an aneurysm on the spot. Random teleportation. The portal had said it would drop me in a random human city. I'd just assumed, stupidly, naively, that random city meant somewhere in China. Back home, Auntie Sue and probably the entire national security apparatus were monitoring every surveillance camera in the country. Tens of thousands of police officers were probably patrolling the streets right now, waiting for me to appear on some camera feed. They'd prepared supply packages. They had a plan. They were ready. And where did the universe send me? To the other side of the planet. To Gotham City during what appeared to be a full-scale riot. What kind of hellish RNG is this? I screamed internally like a prairie dog. But the situation got worse. Much worse. I looked around at my immediate surroundings. I was on a commercial street sidewalk. And surrounding me was a group of very large, very active men in the middle of what Americans politely call looting and what the internet calls $0 shopping. They were wearing oversized hoodies, baggy pants hanging halfway down their backsides, West Coast style. The ones closest to me were built like small mountains, arms thicker than my thighs, bizarre hairstyles, eyes that radiated, "Don't mess with me." They looked like an entire squad of Kong the Conquerors. Not one, a whole gang. They were carrying armfuls of stolen goods, shoe boxes, oversized flat-screen TVs, luxury handbags from some store that had already been gutted. My sudden appearance, a random Asian man materializing out of thin air in the middle of their shopping spree, caused a brief moment of collective confusion. The air froze for 1 second. One of them, a guy with long dirty dreads and a metal baseball bat in his hand, stopped and turned to look at me. He sized me up the way a predator looks at something unfamiliar, deciding whether it's food or not worth the effort. Then he grinned, showing a mouthful of perfect white teeth, and said something to his friends in thick slang that roughly translated to, "Yo, check this dude out. He fall from the sky or something." My English isn't great, but malicious intent is a universal language. That look in his eyes, I'd seen it before. Just hours ago, actually. It was the exact same look the motherboard gave me right before she charged. Except these guys might actually be more dangerous than the boar. At least the boar was predictable. 2:35 on the clock. Time bleeding away. I swallowed hard and made the fastest diplomatic decision of my life. "Sorry, I am Japanese," I announced loudly, raising both hands in the universal gesture of surrender, or as I like to think of it, the classic French military salute. I pasted on the most pathetic, non-threatening smile I could manage. It probably looked worse than crying, and started backing away slowly. Luckily, the crew seemed more interested in emptying the brand-name shoe store behind them than in robbing a guy who looked even more homeless than they did. Dreadlocks guy waved his bat dismissively, told me to get lost in colorful language, then turned and smashed a display window behind him. The crash of shattering glass snapped me back to reality. I spun around and ran. No national rescue team. No supply drops. No government support. Just me, alone, in the middle of an American riot, with less than 2.5 minutes to find weapons that could kill a 3-story alien boar. Weapons. I need weapons. I sprinted through the chaotic streets, dodging looters and scanning every storefront I passed. 2:10. A full minute wasted already. My heart was bleeding for every lost second. These 3 minutes were supposed to be our lifeline. Every second directly translated into survival for 3 people on an alien planet. In China, I could have run into any hardware store and grabbed tools. But here in Riot Zone, New York, most shops had already been picked clean. Nothing left but broken glass, garbage, and empty shelves. Nike? Useless. Starbucks? Get out of here. Apple Store? What am I going to do with a phone? Throw it at the pig? I was sweating buckets, running and scanning, running and scanning. No weapons anywhere. Was I really going back empty-handed? Back to that stinking cave to tell the girls, "Sorry, I took a little vacation in New York, brought back nothing. We're going to die?" Then my feet skidded to a stop. At the corner of the street, a storefront had a half-collapsed sign hanging crooked above a partially pried open metal shutter. The sign had a red bullseye Target logo and English text, "Outdoor World, Hunting and Sporting Goods." A hunting store. This was America, land of the Second Amendment, land of legal firearms. A store like this would absolutely have serious hardware inside. The shutter was already bent open halfway. Someone had tried to break in, or already had. I could hear shouting from inside. This was my only shot. 1:45 on the clock. "Mama Pig, you just wait. Even if I die in here today, I'm bringing you a present." I ducked under the bent shutter and threw myself inside. Bang! The instant my foot crossed the threshold, a thunderclap of a gunshot exploded right next to my ear. A flash of orange muzzle fire lit up the dark interior. Hundreds of tiny metal pellets screamed past my scalp, so close I felt the heat, and slammed into the door frame behind me. Wood splinters exploded in every direction. Holy, pure survival instinct took over before my brain could process anything. My body threw itself sideways in a diving roll, and I crashed behind a toppled shelving unit. Shooting at me, I pressed myself flat against the floor, heart jackhammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Welcome to the land of the free, where they greet you with buckshot. That had been a shotgun blast. If it had connected, I'd have been turned into Swiss cheese. Game over. Credits rolling. The end. 1:30, clock still ticking. No time for fear. I clenched my fists and strained my ears, listening for any sound from behind the counter. A pump action being racked, footsteps, anything that meant a second shot was coming. Instead, I heard a heavy thud, something large hitting the floor, then the clatter of a weapon being dropped. And after that, a weak, agonized groan. A human groan. I peeked over the edge of the fallen shelf. A pale, thick hand was hanging limply over the edge of the counter. A shotgun lay on the floor beside it. Dark red blood was slowly pooling out from beneath the counter, spreading across the tile. I understood immediately. This was the shop owner, some brave American who'd decided to defend his business against the looters. He'd already been shot, probably during an earlier break-in attempt. That blast he'd fired at me was his last stand, using every remaining ounce of strength before he passed out. His final act of defiance. I exhaled hard, confirmed there was no other threat, and launched myself off the floor. No more time for caution. I vaulted over the debris and reached the counter. Without a second of hesitation, I snatched up the weapon lying on the ground. A Remington M870 pump-action shotgun. The barrel was still warm from the shot that nearly killed me. The metal was cold and heavy in my hands. The weight, that solid, deadly, beautiful weight, sent a surge of pure joy through my entire body. I yanked open the drawer next to the unconscious owner and found 3 full boxes of red-cased ammunition, 12-gauge slugs. Not birdshot, not buckshot. Solid lead slugs designed specifically for hunting large, thick-skinned animals like bears and wild boars. One of these could punch a bowl-sized hole through a creature's body. With this, let's see just how thick that pig skin of yours really is. I found a large hiking backpack nearby and dumped all the ammo inside. Then I went on the fastest shopping spree of my life. The store was huge. Even though the best stuff had already been looted, the corners and back shelves still had plenty of useful gear. I ripped a set of heavy-duty tactical jackets and cargo pants off a rack. Then I grabbed 2 more sets in larger sizes, for Su Li and Su Yao. The alien nights were freezing, and those two had been wearing the same shredded school uniforms for over a week. I hit the outdoor food section. High-calorie beef jerky, all of it. Camp cookware and solid fuel tablets? Beautiful, taking it. This splitting axe is perfect, heavy enough for chopping wood and cracking skulls. First aid kit? Absolutely. The Yunnan Bai Yao is almost gone. My brain was running weight calculations in real time. My body weight was 73 kilograms. That was my transport limit. I could carry a maximum of 73 kilos through the portal. Anything over that, the system would randomly leave behind on Earth. And there was no way in hell I was risking my shotgun getting left behind. Self-heating rice? No, too bulky for the weight. Can meat? Spam? Give me 10 of those. Thermal underwear for the girls. In the bag. The hiking pack swelled to bursting. I couldn't even zip it closed anymore. I jammed 2 massive tactical flashlights into the side pockets. We'd been living by the faint glow of alien minerals for over a week, and proper light would change everything. I tested the weight by lifting the pack with one arm. My biceps strained hard. At least 65 kilos in this bag alone. Add the shotgun and the clothes I'm wearing. Maybe 70 kilos total. Close to the limit, 0-30. 30 seconds. I heaved the mountainous backpack onto my shoulders. My legs nearly buckled. Every step required serious effort, like walking through deep mud. I was about to find a quiet corner to wait for the transport when my eyes swept across the unconscious shop owner one more time. The old man was in bad shape. Got shot. Blood still seeping out despite the pressure of his own body weight. His face was gray, completely drained of color. Without treatment, he had maybe 3 to 5 minutes before he bled out and died right there on his own shop floor while looters partied outside. He'd almost killed me 30 seconds ago. That shotgun blast had missed my head by inches. By all rights, I should have cursed him out and walked away. But I looked at him lying there. Then I looked at the backpack full of his merchandise on my shoulders. Fine. I took your stuff. Here's your karma in return. Consider this payment. I gritted my teeth, ripped open the first aid kit I'd just stolen from his own shelf, and pulled out a packet of hemostatic powder and a roll of heavy-duty compression bandage. I knelt down, tore open his blood-soaked shirt, and noticed a phone in his breast pocket. An iPhone. I pocketed it without thinking. Then I poured the entire packet of clotting agent directly onto his wound. The powder hissed as it made contact with the blood. I wrapped the bandage around his torso as tight as I could manage, pulling it hard enough to create real pressure on the wound. FUC, the old man groaned through clenched teeth, but didn't wake up. The bleeding seemed to slow significantly. Whether he survived would depend on how fast an ambulance showed up. But at least I'd given him a fighting chance. Lucky for you, you met a man with principles. I stood up, adjusted the straps of my enormous pack, and noticed a security camera in the corner of the ceiling. Its little red recording light was still blinking. I looked directly into the lens, straightened my stolen tactical vest, shifted the massive backpack on my shoulders, and gave the camera my biggest, most radiant smile. Thanks for the free shopping, midnight. The world twisted. The camera feed went haywire, and I vanished, along with 70 kilos of American outdoor survival equipment and 1 Remington M870 shotgun from the face of the earth. 30 minutes later, On the other side of the Pacific Ocean, a video exploded onto the internet. Someone had already gotten hold of the store's security footage and uploaded it. It rocketed to the #1 trending topic instantly. The hashtags were wild. Mystery Asian man appears at NYC riot. Loots gun store. Vanishes into thin air. And Chinese kung fu? Or magic? That dodge was insane. The grainy footage showed everything. An Asian male with black hair appearing from nowhere, dodging a point-blank shotgun blast with an acrobatic combat roll, methodically stripping the store of high-value survival gear with professional efficiency, pausing to save the wounded shop owner's life, smiling at the camera, and then, in the final frames, simply ceasing to exist. Gone. No door, no window, no escape route. Just gone. The comments sections detonated. Who is this guy? That was absolutely savage. The way he dodged that shotgun. That's military trained. No civilian moves like that. Where's the rest of the footage? Did they catch him? Bro, the FBI is already involved. The surveillance signal got scrambled at the end. They can't find him anywhere. He literally disappeared. People were speculating wildly. Undercover agent, secret operative, some kind of martial arts master walking among ordinary people. Meanwhile, back at Division 305 headquarters in China, the command center was dead silent. Every pair of eyes was locked on the big screen, frozen on that final frame, my smiling face looking into the camera. Academician Li Yaodong rubbed his forehead and let out a long, weary sigh. No wonder. No wonder we turned the entire country upside down and couldn't find him. We deployed every patrol officer we had, and he never showed up. The teleportation sent him abroad. The general beside him had a face like iron, mixed with reluctant admiration and disbelief. This kid went shopping in America? At least, Li Yaodong said, nodding slowly. He got himself a weapon. A Remington M870 with solid slugs. As long as he's not fighting a T-Rex, that gun gives him enough firepower to establish himself in that world. General, we need to expand our coverage area. 3 days from now, it won't just be domestic surveillance. We need to mobilize our overseas resources too. Back in the alien cave, green light flashed. Thud. I crashed to the cave floor under 70 kilos of gear, the sudden gravity shift catching me off balance. Pain shot through my knees and palms. But I didn't care. My hand was already tearing open the backpack zipper, fingers searching until they closed around it. That cold, beautiful steel barrel. Click-clack. The sound of a shotgun shell being chambered echoed through the cave. Clear, crisp, and full of violent promise. The most wonderful sound I'd heard since arriving on this planet. I looked up to see Su Li and Su Yao sprinting toward me from their corner, faces lit up with shock and joy and relief, all tangled together. I grinned at them. A big, wide, sunshine grin. Like a kid who just won the biggest prize at the fair. Ladies, start a fire. Boil some water. Every ounce of misery that pig put us through these past 3 days. We're collecting it all tonight, with interest. For dinner, braised pig snout. I got tackled to the ground the moment I appeared. 2 girls threw themselves at me from both sides, trembling and clinging tight. Even covered in a week's worth of cave grime, they were still undeniably beautiful. Feeling them shake against me, all that adrenaline from dodging shotgun blasts in New York slowly drained away, and my heart went soft. Okay. Stop crying. I ruffled Su Yao's messy hair with one hand and patted Su Li's shoulder with the other. There was a little hiccup this time. The portal threw me to the other side of the planet, America. Didn't make it home. What? You went abroad? Su Yao lifted her tear-streaked face, completely stunned. Yeah, didn't get to see your mom, didn't get a hot meal. But I slapped the side of the massive hiking pack next to me, unable to hide my smugness. Your big brother went on a $0 shopping spree. The old lady at the seed store already got paid with your gold necklace, so think of this as me collecting interest on the investment. Now help me up. We've been rotting in this cave long enough. Tonight, we celebrate. They hauled me to my feet. I dragged the bulging backpack over and unzipped it. All 3 pairs of eyes locked onto the contents. I started pulling things out like a cartoon character reaching into a magic bag. Tada! Beef jerky sticks. High calorie, high fiber. 1 stick keeps you going all day. Su Yao's eyes lit up like lanterns. She snatched one and cradled it in both hands. Wow! Lin Bei Big Brother is amazing. Yao Yao's been eating nothing but ham for days and hasn't been able to go to the bathroom. Next up, canned meat, canned vegetables, 10 cans total. Vegetables. There are vegetables. Swiss Army knife. Splitting axe. Now we can actually chop firewood and cook properly. Every item I pulled out, Su Yao was right there being the world's best hype girl. Non-stop. Wow. Eyes full of little stars of worship. Even Su Li, who normally kept her cool, couldn't stop her eyes from getting brighter and brighter, a smile slowly spreading across her face that she didn't even try to hide. Lin Bei, you're really impressive, she said quietly. Her eyes had gone so soft they looked like they could melt. You think that's impressive? The best stuff is still at the bottom. I grinned and reached deep into the pack, pulling out with effort 2 sets of clothing. High-end tactical jackets with matching pants, the kind that cost several $1,000s each in that American store. Waterproof, windproof, with removable fleece linings. In this cold, damp cave, these were literally life-saving equipment. New clothes. Even Su Li couldn't hold back a shout. Nobody knew better than them how miserable it had been wearing those same destroyed school uniforms for over a week. Skirts too short to keep their legs warm, stockings so torn and filthy they were basically decorative rags. Cold, dirty, and uncomfortable didn't begin to describe it. Change into them later. I also got matching hiking boots. I specifically picked the insulated heavy-duty ones. I handed the clothes over. Both girls hugged the jackets to their chests, hands literally trembling with excitement. They could smell that new clothes smell and looked ready to cry from happiness. Then I reached into a side pocket and pulled out a small black package. I glanced at Su Yao, who was still grinning ear to ear over the beef jerky, and decided to hand it to the more sensible sister instead. I pressed the bag into Su Li's hands. For you, more clothes? She blinked, instinctively squeezing the bag. Soft. Thin. She opened it and peeked inside. One glance. That's all it took. Her face went from normal to absolutely crimson in about half a second. The blush spread from her cheeks all the way to her ears and down her neck. Inside the bag were several individually wrapped sets of white cotton undergarments. Disposable bras and underwear. The kind with little strawberry prints on them. The girl style. You actually grabbed these, she whispered, so quietly I could barely hear her. She couldn't look me in the eye. What they'd never complained about, what was actually harder to deal with than hunger, was the hygiene situation with their intimate clothing. Wearing the same underwear for over a week in a humid cave had been driving these 2 cleanliness-obsessed girls quietly insane. But it was too embarrassing to ever bring up. Just grab them on the way out. No big deal, I said, keeping my voice casual. It's for health reasons. We're in this for the long haul. Su Li bit her lip and clutched the little bag tight against her chest. Embarrassed, yes. But the gratitude underneath was completely genuine. This man, this annoying, bossy, sharp-tongued man, had thought of even this kind of detail while dodging bullets and racing against a 3-minute clock. Thank you. Her voice was gentle. Warm. Nothing like the Ice Queen princess I'd met 2 weeks ago. Don't mention it. We're family at this point. I stood up and pointed at the stalactite in the corner where we'd been collecting water. We'd been drinking bottled water these past days, so the drip-collected cave water had actually built up a decent reserve. Go ahead and change. That water might not be safe to drink, but it's fine for wiping yourselves down. Clean up, put on the new clothes, and let's get a proper night's sleep for once. The word, clean up, hit them like an electric shock. Both girls' eyes went glassy with emotion. Washing. Actual washing. They'd been dreaming about this for days, being able to feel clean skin again instead of layers of dried sweat and cave dust. But then Su Li glanced at me, then at the cave around us. Wide open. No walls. No curtains. No privacy whatsoever. Lin Bei, could you turn around? Please. Her face was pink, her voice soft and almost pleading. It sounded dangerously close to flirting, though I was pretty sure she didn't mean it that way. Not really necessary, I muttered. It's not like I haven't seen everything when you two are sleeping, but I turned around anyway and sat down with my back to them at a respectful distance. I pulled out the iPhone I'd lifted from the shop owner's shirt pocket. 90% battery. Nice. I started using its camera to film the cave entrance and the outside environment through the air holes. If the next portal drop landed me in China, I'd leave this phone behind as additional evidence for the authorities. Don't you dare turn around. Su Li's voice came from behind me, trying to sound threatening. If you peek, I'll. She stalled out for a solid 5 seconds, unable to come up with an actual threat, and finally just stomped her foot in frustration. Behind me, the sound of clothes being peeled off filled the silence. In the quiet cave, every rustle and whisper was amplified 100-fold. The soft sound of fabric sliding off skin, like a feather tickling the tip of my heart. Sis, can you help me wipe my back? I can't reach. Su Yao's sweet, soft voice floated over. Chill. Keep your voice down, Su Li hissed, clearly flustered. Then came the sounds of a wet cloth being dipped in water, wrung out, and the quiet friction of damp fabric being drawn across skin. Ah, sis, your hands are so cold. Su Yao let out a small gasp. Just bear with it. We need to get properly clean. Su Li's voice carried a thread of happiness through its trembling. The joy of finally being able to wash after more than a week of grime. I sat there, diligently filming the cave entrance with the phone, being very professional and responsible. But the sounds behind me kept feeding my imagination scenes I couldn't switch off no matter how hard I tried. Pale skin glowing faintly in the mineral light, water droplets tracing paths down smooth backs. This is actual torture, but I was grinning the whole time. Some kinds of torture you don't really mind. Lin Bei big brother. Su Yao's voice suddenly came from closer behind me. What? My Adam's apple bobbed. I did not turn around. I finished helping sis wipe down too. Her voice was shy but had this innocent, unaware seductiveness to it. Do you want us to help you clean up? We could wipe your back for you. You must be really dirty too. My heart skipped an actual beat. Did this girl have any idea what she was saying? Idiot Su Yao. Shut your mouth. Su Li's mortified shriek echoed through the cave. Put your clothes on right now. Stop saying ridiculous things. But Lin Bei big brother works so hard. More rustling of clothes being hastily pulled on. A long pause. Okay. Su Li's voice finally came, still a little unsteady. You can turn around now. I took a few seconds to calm down the riot happening inside my chest, then slowly turned. What I saw made me catch my breath. Both sisters stood there in matching deep red tactical jackets. The clothes were a size too big, wrapping them up thoroughly from neck to ankle, hiding everything. But their freshly washed faces, clean for the first time in over a week, practically glowed. Smooth, white, with a natural rosy flush that the grime had been hiding all this time. Their damp hair hung loose over their shoulders, catching the faint mineral light in a way that made them look like they'd stepped out of a painting. Su Li was clutching that little black bag of secret items in both hands. When she noticed me looking, her eyes darted away in panic, that half-embarrassed, half-wanting to say something expression on her face somehow even more captivating than when she sleepwalked onto me every night. I smiled. A real, warm smile. I patted the ground beside me. I'll skip the bath. A little dirt never hurt anyone. Think of it as natural armor. Come sit down. Let's eat. We need full stomachs and full energy. Tonight, because after dinner, we're going pig hunting. The twins looked like new people in those tactical jackets, freshly scrubbed and warm for the first time in over a week. But the moment the discomfort faded, a new feeling took over their brains. Hunger. We've been eating random cold scraps for days. But a Chinese stomach needs hot food. Without it, something just feels hollow inside. All three of our stomachs started growling at the same time. A perfect little three-part harmony of hunger. I pulled out a small stainless steel camp pot from the hiking pack, along with a box of solid alcohol fuel tablets. Su Yao's eyes went wide the second she figured out what was happening. We're cooking. Real food. I stacked a few flat rocks into a simple little stove and set the fuel block in the center. Su Yao lost all composure. She launched herself onto my back, arms around my neck, screaming that she wanted to cry from happiness. She was bouncing against me, and even through the thick jacket I could feel things I was trying very hard not to think about. I smacked her on the butt and told her to get off before she strangled me to death and nobody would be left to cook. Su Li, watching from the side, asked why I'd never let them build a fire before. All those freezing nights, she'd wanted to burn sticks from outside the cave entrance. Because I didn't want us to die, I said, pouring water into the pot. Our ventilation is terrible. Burning wood in here would fill the cave with smoke and carbon monoxide. We'd be dead before the food was ready. These alcohol blocks burn clean, no smoke, complete combustion. Safe for enclosed spaces, I lit the fuel with the blowtorch. A small blue flame danced to life, and in the dim cave, That tiny warm glow felt like civilization had returned. The water boiled quickly. I went into chef mode. Spam cubed in the pot. Dehydrated vegetable packet in. Salt and pepper from the Su family kitchen in. The aroma of hot meat stew filled the cave. We'd moved to the deepest corner to escape the biological warfare stench the motherboard had been leaving at our doorstep. Back here, the air was clean enough that the smell of real cooked food was overwhelming in the best possible way. Su Yao crouched by the stove with her chin in her hands, staring at the bubbling meat like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Su Li tried to maintain her elegant sitting posture nearby, but the way she kept breathing deeply through her nose gave her away completely. 5 minutes later, I killed the flame and carefully lifted the steaming pot to the center of our little circle. One problem. In my rush through the American store, with weight limits pressing down on every decision, I'd only grabbed one spoon. "We've got one spoon between 3 people," I said, tapping it against the pot rim. "Tough conditions. We take turns. I call second," Su Yao declared instantly, zero hesitation, zero shame. I got the sense she actually preferred using a spoon after me rather than before. I spoiled her. I scooped up a big portion of meat and broth, blew on it to cool it down, and held it out to her lips. She opened her mouth like a baby bird waiting to be fed and swallowed the whole thing in one go. MMPH. Hot, hot, hot. So good. So good. She was fanning her mouth and tearing up at the same time, overwhelmed by the simple miracle of hot food reaching her stomach after so many days. I took the second bite myself. Didn't bother wiping the spoon. Shoveled a big chunk of spam into my mouth. Damn, I'm actually a great cook. Then I scooped up the third portion and held it out to Su Li. She stared at the spoon that had just been in her sister's mouth, then in my mouth, and was now hovering in front of hers. She could probably see traces of both our saliva on the metal. Wasn't this basically an indirect kiss? A chain kiss at that? Her face turned scarlet. "You two eat first. I'm not hungry yet." GRRGL. Her stomach immediately and loudly disagreed, the sound echoing through the silent cave like a foghorn. I gave her my best. "Oh really? Look. You sure? This is a limited time offer." She looked at the steaming chunk of spam on the spoon, then at my teasing eyes. The battle between pride and hunger lasted about 2 seconds. Hunger won by a landslide. "Fine. A kiss is a kiss." She said it like a soldier charging into battle, opened her mouth, and clamped her lips around the spoon. The metal was warm from my hand. There was a faint taste that wasn't just food. In that moment, she said she felt like she wasn't swallowing meat. She was swallowing my fingers. "Good?" I asked with a grin. She chewed with her head down, face so red it looked ready to bleed, refusing to make eye contact. Then she murmured quietly, "It's good. It has your taste." The instant those words left her mouth, she realized what she'd said and looked like she wanted the cave floor to swallow her whole. I burst out laughing. That's how we ate. 1 spoon, 3 mouths. Your turn, my turn, your turn. Passing that same warm metal back and forth between us. In an alien cave billions of miles from home, surrounded by monsters, sitting on cold rock, that simple pot of mixed stew became the most delicious, most intimate, and most comforting meal any of us had ever eaten. When the pot was empty, warmth spread through every corner of my body. Su Yao leaned against my left side. Su Li settled against my right. The 3 of us sat together watching the last embers of the fuel block flicker and fade. My hand found the shotgun lying beside me. My eyes slowly sharpened, shifting from warm and lazy to something colder. "Full, full," they both said together, voices heavy with satisfaction and drowsiness. "Good." I stood up, grabbed the Remington, and racked the pump. That sharp metallic clack of a slug being chambered rang through the cave like a promise. Time to go pig hunting. I sat cross-legged on the cave floor, running my hands over the cold steel of the Remington M870. The weight of it was deeply reassuring. Click-clack, click-clack. I practiced the pump action over and over. Aim, fire, rack, aim again, until the motions went from awkward to smooth. I'd never fired a real gun in my life. But between action movies and hundreds of hours of FPS games, the muscle memory was practically pre-installed. A shotgun at close range doesn't need precision. It needs guts, steady hands, and close distance. I looked outside through the air hole. Only one sun was still faintly glowing above the horizon. The other two had already set. Darkness was coming. Hunting time. Boom. Boom. Right on schedule. The ground started shaking. She was here. 3 days straight. This vengeful beast had arrived with the reliability of a factory worker punching a time clock. Even with half a tusk broken off from ramming our mountain, she still showed up. Hatred was one hell of a motivator. Get back, I whispered, waving the girls deeper into the cave. Su Li and Su Yao immediately retreated behind the rocks at the far end, hands over their mouths, eyes huge and terrified, hearts hammering so loud I could almost hear them from where I crouched. To them, I was the only thing standing between survival and death. No pressure. Once they were hidden, I took a slow breath and pressed myself flat against the cave wall, sliding silently into the blind spot right beside the entrance. The stench hit me like a wall, that rancid mix of rotting piglet carcass and fresh pig urine. Right on cue, I heard the unmistakable sound of a massive stream of liquid hitting the ground outside. This disgusting animal was using our front door as her toilet again. A dominance display, a territorial marking, an insult. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. Not yet. Patience. I needed to wait for the exact right moment. When she'd finished her rage ritual, when her guard dropped to its lowest point. The Remington had an extended tube, 7 shells loaded. But against a creature weighing hundreds of tons, a creature that had evolved over millions of years on a planet where everything grew to terrifying scale, I realistically had one chance. One moment. If my first shot didn't land somewhere absolutely critical, she'd either go berserk and crush the mountain entrance, or bolt into the forest and never come close enough again. There would be no second opportunity. A failed ambush meant death for all 3 of us. I laid the gun flat on the ground beside me and pulled 2 cotton balls from my pocket, stuffed one in each ear, firing a shotgun inside a narrow cave. The sound waves bouncing off stone walls at point-blank range would rupture my eardrums instantly, maybe knock me unconscious. I couldn't afford either. Preparations done, I turned my head and looked at the 2 girls huddled behind their rock 30 meters away. 2 pairs of wide, tear-filled eyes staring at me without blinking, trembling but refusing to look away. I flashed them a grin, raised an eyebrow, and blew them a kiss. Su Li blinked in surprise, then her face went red. But I saw her shoulders relax just a fraction. Some of the terror drained from her eyes, replaced by something warmer. This idiot, she was probably thinking. About to fight for his life and still showing off. The sounds outside changed. The ramming stopped. Heavy, rasping breathing echoed into the cave. The boar was confused. Normally when she hit the mountain, the creatures inside would scream. Today, silence. And there was an unfamiliar smell drifting out, something delicious. The leftover scent of our cooked meal. Had the bugs inside escaped? Or died? The thought of her enemies escaping, of her child's killers slipping away after she'd broken half a tusk chasing revenge, made her anxious. Frantic, she lowered her enormous head and pressed her left eye against the cave opening. That blood-red pupil contracted in the darkness, scanning the interior. She saw the 2 female insects cowering in the far corner. She saw the pile of strange-smelling food. But the male, the one who'd killed her baby, was nowhere. She snorted a blast of hot, foul air into the cave and tried to peer deeper. That was the moment. From her blind spot, a shadow exploded into motion. I spun out from the wall in one fluid movement, dropped to one knee, and brought the shotgun up. The black muzzle rose like the scythe of death itself, pointing directly at that massive, bloodshot eye. Less than half a meter away, the barrel was practically inside the eye socket. Watch yourself in your next life. I screamed the words and squeezed the trigger. Boom. The first shot split the air like a thunderclap, drowning out every other sound in existence. Orange muzzle flash lit up the cave entrance like a lightning strike. At that distance, the solid lead slug released devastating kinetic energy. The eye, that giant, blood-red eye that had stared us down for 3 days, that had promised our deaths, that had memorized our scent, burst apart like a water balloon. Fluid sprayed in every direction. The slug met zero resistance, punching through the ruined eye socket and drilling deep into the skull, straight toward the brain. Squeal! A shriek of pure agony erupted from the beast's mouth. Even through the cotton balls, my skull was vibrating. But I wasn't done. When something is wounded, you finish it. No hesitation. No mercy. Click-clack. I racked the pump. The spent shell spun through the air. Boom. Second shot. Straight into the same blown-open hole. Right down the channel the first slug had carved. A double tap to the brain. The second slug turned whatever was left inside that massive skull into soup. Outside, the 3-story monster that had terrorized us for 3 straight days, that had made us choke on rot and feces, that had shaken our mountain like an earthquake twice a day, that had stared at us with murderous promise, staggered backward on 6 legs. Her body was still running on the last signals her destroyed brain had fired. Go back to the forest. Go home. But the signals were already dead. Crash. The earth shook violently as hundreds of tons of flesh and bone collapsed onto the rocky clearing in front of our cave. Dust and debris erupted into the air. The impact felt like a bomb going off. Her 6 massive legs twitched a few times. Then nothing. Silence. I held my position, gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel, ready to fire again if she so much as flinched. 1 minute passed. I pulled the cotton from my ears. Listened. Looked at the massive dark shape lying motionless outside our door. I exhaled slowly. Tonight, we sleep well. Tonight, we sleep well. I put away the gun and peered outside. Moonlight barely lit anything. The beast was dead, but the blood smell would attract other predators from the jungle. Going out at night to butcher meat in a pitch-dark alien forest full of snakes and poisonous insects? No chance. I'd rather starve and wait for the next portal trip to Earth than risk that. The moment I turned around, 2 warm bodies slammed into me. Su Yao was crying, squeezing my waist so tight, she was practically trying to merge into my body. Su Li wasn't speaking, but her hands were gripping my clothes, and she was still trembling. Watching me blow a creature's eye out at point-blank range had been too much for 2 sheltered girls who'd never seen anything more violent than a school drama. I held them both, one in each arm, patting their backs. Threat eliminated. From now on, we own this neighborhood. Su Li lifted her face from my chest. Her eyes were red, and something had changed in them. That last layer of princess pride, that stubborn barrier she'd been holding on to since day one, had finally shattered completely. What was left was pure, unconditional trust. Lin Bei, let's get the meat tomorrow. It's too dangerous tonight. Her voice was soft, gentle, obedient. Tomorrow, Xiao Yao and I will do whatever you say. I was genuinely surprised. Su Li's voice had gone all sweet and docile, like her sister's. Those 2 shotgun blasts hadn't just killed a boar, they'd completely conquered the proudest girl I'd ever met. We pushed the scattered rocks back into the entrance to block the wind and keep small creatures from sneaking in overnight. Then we settled onto our sleeping area. Both sisters lay down on either side of me without any of the usual hesitation or pretending they didn't want to. Su Li on my left shoulder, Su Yao on my right. Their hair brushed against my face, their faint scent overriding the blood and stench from outside. I pulled out the iPhone I'd taken from the American shop owner. No password. The old man hadn't even set a lock screen. I opened it up, hoping to find some downloaded movies or shows to kill time during this long, dark, boring alien night. No internet, no electricity to spare. A phone with offline content was pure gold for morale. 2 little heads immediately pressed in from both sides, chins resting on my shoulders, eyes locked on the screen like curious kittens. The feeling of 2 soft, warm bodies pressed against me from both sides, their breath on my neck. If this were back on Earth, a regular student like me couldn't dream of this situation. Auntie Sue would have hired bodyguards to break my legs before I got within 10 meters of her daughters. But here, everything was different. Lin Bei, big brother, what's in this folder? Su Yao pointed at a video collection labeled, Good, curiosity bursting out of her. Don't go through someone's private. Too late. Her finger had already tapped it. The video opened. Autoplay kicked in before any of us could see the thumbnail clearly. Oh, yes, yes. A woman's voice, extremely passionate, extremely European, extremely loud, erupted from the phone's speaker and echoed off every stone surface in the cave. The acoustics created a perfect surround sound experience. Every moan bounced off the walls and came back amplified. 1 second of frozen silence. I could feel both girls turn to stone against my shoulders. Completely rigid. Not breathing. On screen, too. Athletes. Were engaged in the most primal form of wrestling. That kindly-looking, white-bearded old shop owner had quite the private collection. extensive and wild. HHH, Su Yao screamed and flailed her arms, accidentally smacking the phone out of my hands. It flew 2 meters away and landed face up on the cave floor. It didn't break. Of course it didn't break. The speaker was now pointing at the cave ceiling, and the dedicated European performer's voice got even louder as it bounced off the rock dome above us. Baby, come on. The silence that followed was the kind that makes your toes curl into the ground from sheer secondhand embarrassment. Suli had buried her face so deep into my jacket I was worried she'd suffocate. Her ears were glowing red enough to use as emergency lighting. Su Yao had both hands over her eyes, fingers spread embarrassingly wide apart, chanting, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I sat there with my mouth twitching, wondering what I'd done in a past life to deserve this moment. I sighed, got up, walked over, picked up the phone, and shut off the video with surgical precision. Locked the screen. Peace returned to the cave. I cleared my throat with great authority. So, let's sleep. All living creatures, humans and animals alike, have the instinct to reproduce. This falls under the category of biology. Nothing to be shocked about. I delivered this completely ridiculous statement with the gravity of a university professor, hoping to somehow salvage the atmosphere. We lay back down. This time both girls were perfectly still. No fidgeting, no talking, and absolutely no requests to look at the phone again. I closed my eyes, feeling their warmth on both sides, but my brain was already working on practical matters. This sleeping arrangement had to change. All 3 of us on one big floor bed. It worked for survival. But going forward, if I ever wanted to have any kind of private conversation with either of them, with the twin sister lying right there watching, that was never going to work. A blueprint started forming in my mind. Besides butchering that pig tomorrow, I need to put house construction on the schedule, build wooden room dividers inside this cave. Proper walls, at least 3 bedrooms and a common area. Once everyone has their own room, who I visit for a late-night chat becomes entirely my decision. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. The gunfight earlier had left my nerves on edge, making it hard to sleep deeply. Through the gaps in the rocks blocking our entrance, I could hear crunching and snapping sounds. Chewing. Bones breaking. Something big was eating out there, multiple somethings, actually. The blood smell from the dead boar had attracted the jungle's night shift. Scavengers were helping themselves to the free buffet on our doorstep. I listened carefully for a while. Sounded like several large carnivores fighting over the meat. But our rock wall was solid. As long as nothing bulldozer-sized showed up, these opportunistic feeders couldn't get in. Eat up and get lost. I rolled over and pulled both girls closer. Su Yao, running on sleep autopilot as usual, sensed the warmth and burrowed deeper into my chest, mumbling something about wanting more braised pork. Then a genuinely disturbing thought crossed my mind. What if those scavengers were eating the baby boar? The one I'd fed 5 bottles of concentrated pesticide. Would the poison chain kill them too? And then their relatives would find a pile of dead family members at my front door, and the whole cycle of revenge would start over? A nesting doll of vengeance. An infinite loop of animals dying outside my cave and their angry families coming to investigate. At this rate, my doorstep was going to become a mass graveyard. Whatever. Not my problem. I buried my face in Su Li's hair. The air vent occasionally wafted in stench from outside, but compared to that, the girls smelled heavenly. I fell back asleep. Next morning, I woke up after a full 8 hours, the best sleep I'd had since arriving on this planet. Not a single dream. Pure blackout rest. I carefully peeled Su Li's thigh off my chest and relocated Su Yao's head from my stomach. Standard morning procedure at this point. Nature called. I shuffled to the bathroom zone we'd set up deep in the cave, pulled down my pants, and aimed at the designated pit. The stream had barely started when, a piercing, savage howl exploded from just outside the cave entrance, maybe 3 meters away. The sound ripped through the morning silence like a knife. Every muscle in my body clenched simultaneously, including the one controlling the stream, which shut off so violently I nearly gave myself internal damage. What the? The pain of forcibly cutting off mid-flow was something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I stood there grimacing, feeling like my insides had tied themselves in a knot. It's barely dawn and you're screaming like that? I finished up as fast as humanly possible, yanked my pants up, grabbed the shotgun, and rushed to the entrance to peek through the cracks. Nothing. Just a battlefield of white bones and scattered remains on the rocky clearing. Some well-fed scavenger had apparently decided to leave a victory roar as a restaurant review before heading home. Lucky you ran fast. I cursed under my breath and put the gun down. These alien creatures had absolutely zero manners. Back at our sleeping area, both girls were still completely passed out. That blood-curdling hell hadn't even made them twitch. After 3 days of psychological terrorism from the mother boar, their nerves had been so thoroughly fried that their brains had apparently decided to just stop registering scary sounds. During sleep, self-preservation through ignorance. Su Li's face looked softer in sleep than I'd ever seen it. That cold, proud mask completely gone, replaced by something gentle and peaceful. Her long lashes fluttered slightly with her breathing. Su Yao had her mouth half open with a thin line of drool connecting her lip to my jacket. Adorable and disgusting at the same time. I crouched down next to them, looking at their pink, peaceful sleeping faces. Something warm moved through my chest. I leaned in and planted a firm good morning kiss on each of their cheeks. Moi? Moi. Su Li's eyes fluttered open. She touched her cheek, saw me grinning down at her, and her lips curved into a sleepy, lazy smile. Morning. Her voice was husky from sleep, soft as a feather brushing against something deep inside me. Morning. Sun's up, time to move. I gave her cheek a playful pinch, then stood up in a great mood and started setting up the camp stove. Breakfast was simple. 2 cans of sweet congee heated up in the pot with sliced beef mixed in, creating a bizarre sweet and savory flavor combination that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Su Yao had woken up the instant she smelled food cooking and was crouching by the pot watching it bubble like a nature documentary. The presentation was ugly, but we scraped the pot completely clean. After breakfast, I put down the spoon and wiped my mouth. Time for business. Gear up. I handed Su Li a sharp hunting knife from the backpack. I grabbed the splitting axe and sickle for myself. That boar queen I killed last night is our food supply for the next stretch. The night scavengers already ate a good chunk of it, so we need to salvage whatever's left before it's all gone. I stood up, rolled my shoulders, and felt the satisfying crack of joints loosening up. My eyes were bright and focused. Today we have one job: get the meat. Cut it into strips. Smoke it dry. By the time we're done, I want every wall of this cave hanging with jerky. 1, 2, 3, push. The 3 of us shoved the bigger rocks away from the cave entrance. We could only manage the smaller ones, but it was enough. Sunlight flooded in for the first time in days. But before I could take a single breath of fresh air, a wall of stench hit me like a physical force. Imagine someone locked durian and raw sewage in a pressure cooker for 3 days, then ripped the lid off right in your face. My eyes burned instantly. My stomach flipped. The breakfast I'd just eaten nearly came back up. Holy, this is vile. I turned back to the girls, who were right behind me ready to follow. Stay inside. Don't come out yet. Plug your noses first. We didn't have real masks, so we torn strips from our old t-shirts and tied them over our faces as makeshift filters. They barely helped. Coughing and gagging, I gripped the shotgun and slowly crawled out, squinting against the triple sunlight. My eyes swept across the scene of last night's feast, and even though I'd expected something bad, what I saw made my scalp tingle. On the left side of the entrance, where the baby boar's pesticide-laced carcass had been, it was gone. Not dragged away, gone. Completely gone. Nothing left but a scattered skeleton picked so clean it looked like it had been through an industrial dishwasher. Not a single fiber of meat remained on any bone. The scavengers had been thorough beyond belief. Surrounding the bones, the ground was carpeted with dead mosquitoes. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, fist-sized mosquito corpses piled on top of each other in a thick layer. My whole body clenched. Thank God I hadn't gone outside last night. Walking out in the dark, I would have been drained dry by a swarm of giant mosquitoes before I took 3 steps. In front of the entrance, the mother boar, the 3-story nightmare that had terrorized us, was in even worse shape. Half her massive body had been eaten overnight. Her belly had been ripped completely open, and clinging to the exposed flesh inside were dozens of alien leeches, each one swollen to the size of a basketball from gorging on blood. The sight of them made my skin crawl so badly I physically backed away. Her guts were scattered everywhere, and her rear end had been excavated. Something had gone in from behind and hollowed her out from the inside. like she'd received a visit from the world's most aggressive proctologist. In one night, they ate an entire multi-ton baby pig and half of a 100-ton adult. The appetite required for that was beyond my comprehension. What kind of creatures lived in this jungle? But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. My eyes locked onto several bodies lying nearby that I hadn't noticed at first. 3 strange creatures. Dead. They weren't as large as the boar, maybe one size bigger than an earth cow or horse. But their appearance was absolutely insane. Their bodies were covered in fine blue-gray feathers. Each had a thick, powerful tail. Their hind legs were muscular and built for speed. Their front limbs were short but tipped with curved, sickle-shaped claws that looked designed for one purpose: killing. Their mouths hung half open in death, revealing rows of serrated teeth like tiny saw blades. Are those feathered dinosaurs? A chill shot up from the soles of my feet straight to the top of my skull. The colors and some details were different, but the body shape and proportions were unmistakable. I'd seen these exact silhouettes in dinosaur museums as a kid. These looked like raptors, smaller predatory dinosaurs, the kind that hunted in packs and used those curved toe claws to disembowel prey. I slowly raised my head and looked at the jungle surrounding us with completely new eyes. The extremely high oxygen concentration, the giant fern-like plants, the colossal trees reaching toward the sky, and now, actual dinosaur corpses at my feet. A terrifying realization crystallized in my mind. This planet is a prehistoric world. We landed in the Jurassic era. I gathered my courage, stepped carefully around the leeches that seemed eager to get acquainted with me, and walked up to one of the dead raptors. I kicked it with my boot. Hard and stiff. Definitely dead. Its mouth was stained with dark blood, and beneath its body was a puddle of dried vomit. I understood immediately. These unlucky dinosaurs had been part of last night's scavenger party. They'd eaten the baby boar, the one loaded with 5 bottles of Earth's finest agricultural poison. The paraquat and dichlorvos had killed them from the inside. Pesticide claims work on dinosaurs too. Good to know. Then the grin died on my face. A horrible thought took shape. I stared at the 3 dead raptors. They were clearly juveniles, not fully grown. Young ones. Babies, relatively speaking. Wait a second. These are probably somebody's children too, aren't they? Based on how things work on this planet. Just days ago, I'd killed one baby boar, and its mother had waged a 3-day war of terror against us. Now I'd accidentally poisoned a litter of baby dinosaurs. The pattern was obvious and horrifying. Is there a Tyrannosaurus-sized parent out there right now, heading this way to settle the score? My palms were slick with sweat on the shotgun grip. I scanned the tree line frantically, half expecting a massive reptilian head to explode out of the vegetation at any second. A shotgun versus a full-grown T-Rex? That math didn't work out in my favor. We can't stay out here. I forced myself to stop spiraling and turn my attention back to what mattered most, the remaining meat. Even with half of it devoured overnight, the mother boar's carcass was still staggeringly enormous. This animal had stood 3 stories tall when alive. Even lying on its side, just the head was 3 or 4 meters in diameter. The body stretched over 20 meters long, like a collapsed fortress wall. Standing next to it, I felt like a baby standing beside a beached whale. I walked up and held out my arms to gauge the scale. What's left here is still tens of tons of meat, minimum, pure protein. Fear and greed wrestled inside me. Greed won. Fortune favors the bold. Cowards starve. Even if a T-Rex is on its way, I'm grabbing as much meat as I can first. I was about to call the girls out to help when my eyes caught the edges of the massive bite wounds on the boar's body. The torn flesh was ragged. The bones snapped clean through. Whatever had done this had bitten through the boar's incredibly thick hide and dense bones like they were nothing. A cold realization settled over me. This boar's skin was so tough that my shotgun slug only worked because I shot through the eye socket. Regular predators shouldn't be able to tear through this armor. But something ripped it apart in one night and ate dozens of tons of flesh. I looked at the peaceful-seeming jungle surrounding us. The chill in my spine deepened. Whatever ate here last night was just as big as this boar. Maybe bigger, and there was more than one. This planet wasn't just a dinosaur world. It was a world where our 3-story boar, the creature that had felt like an unstoppable god of destruction to us, was possibly near the bottom of the food chain. We'd been terrified of her for 3 days. But to the real apex predators of this world, she was just another meal. We're ants. We're literally ants who fell into a monster's nest. I shoved the fear back down into my gut and turned toward the cave entrance. Su Li, Su Yao, grab the knives and get out here. Whether it's dinosaurs or monsters, we need to cut as much meat off this thing as we can before their parents show up. Take everything we can carry. Clang. I swung the splitting axe with everything I had. It bounced right off the boar's skin like I'd hit a truck tire. The rebound nearly ripped the handle out of my hands, leaving my palms stinging and numb. How is this thing so hard? I walked around to where the scavengers had torn into the carcass overnight and examined the exposed cross-section. What I saw made my blood run cold. Under the coarse black bristles was a thick layer of white fat, then dense outer skin, then an even denser inner layer. I measured the total thickness of just the hide, not counting the fat, and it was half a meter of natural biological armor. This pig had been wearing a built-in bulletproof vest its entire life. I touched the shotgun on my back and broke into a cold sweat. I'd been walking around feeling like a big shot because I had a gun. Now I realized, if that boar hadn't been arrogant enough to press its eyeball right against my barrel, giving me a shot at its only weak point, I could have emptied the entire magazine into its body and it would have felt nothing. Just a pleasant scratch. If she'd been a little faster, just closed her thick eyelid in time, the slug probably would have just broken the skin on her eyelid. Maybe not even fatal. I stared at the mountain of meat in front of me, hundreds of tons of premium protein, and couldn't cut a single piece off. The axe was useless against this armor. Then Su Yao called out from nearby. She was crouching by the baby boar's skeleton, struggling to drag something heavy and white. It was a tooth. A dinosaur tooth, broken off during last night's feeding frenzy. As thick as a grown man's forearm, about half a meter long, ivory white with serrated hook-like edges along both sides. I grabbed it from her. It was surprisingly heavy and warm to the touch, not cold like bone should be. I brought my fingertip close to the edge to test its sharpness. Before I even made contact, I felt a tingling buzz, like weak static electricity. I looked down. My finger was bleeding from a clean cut, even though I hadn't actually touched the blade. This thing has sword energy, but even with a supernaturally sharp tooth, I didn't have a dinosaur's multi-ton bite force. Could it really cut through half a meter of pig armor? I sterilized it first with the blowtorch. Under the blue flame, something bizarre happened. Instead of blackening or cracking from the heat, the tooth seemed to absorb the fire. Its surface went from dull ivory to something crystalline and translucent. The serrated edges began to glow with a faint red shimmer. This wasn't normal bone. This was some kind of biological alloy, something beyond ordinary flesh and blood. I wrapped a strip of cloth around the root end as a handle, walked up to the boar, and stabbed down with all my strength. Sizzle! The instant the tooth touched the pig's skin, there was a sound like searing. The hide that had laughed off my splitting axe simply melted apart at the point of contact. I felt zero resistance. My hand just sank in, and before I knew it, the entire half-meter tooth was buried to the hilt in pig armor. This is a legendary weapon. The dragon tooth had some kind of armor-piercing property built into it. I didn't even need brute force, just a gentle drag, and it sliced through anything. Su Yao, you're my lucky star. I dropped the tooth, scooped her up in a bear hug, pulled down my makeshift mask, and planted a big kiss right on her dirty but adorable little face. She covered her cheeks, eyes crinkling into happy crescents, grinning so wide you'd think she'd won the lottery. Off to the side, Su Li watched with a slightly sour expression. I could tell she was annoyed that her idiot sister had been the one to help me first. With the dragon tooth, butchering finally began for real. I became a master butcher. The blade danced through flesh, separating beautiful cuts of prime pork shoulder and tenderloin from the massive carcass. It was still exhausting work, but compared to the axe bouncing off uselessly, this was a miracle. Move it, ladies. Watch out for leeches and mosquitoes on the ground. And don't step in the rock cracks. There are giant centipedes and scorpions hiding in there. Su Li and Su Yao worked hard alongside me. Each one dragged a door-sized leaf loaded with meat strips, shuttling back and forth between the carcass and the cave entrance like industrious little ants. We worked the entire day. All three suns rose and set before we finally stopped. Even with our enhanced bodies, we were so exhausted we could barely stand straight. Looking back at the enormous boar carcass, all our effort had only carved out a small dent in its back. Against tens of tons of total meat, our few thousand pounds of harvest was barely a drop in the bucket. It's too big. It's just too damn big. I wiped sweat from my forehead, torn between frustration and awe. We had to stop. It was getting dark, and working blind near rock crevices full of venomous creatures was suicide. By tomorrow morning, scavengers would have eaten most of what remained. What a waste. We dragged ourselves back inside and sealed the entrance. I clicked on one of the tactical flashlights, aimed it at the ceiling, and the sight that greeted us washed away every ounce of exhaustion. The flat stone surfaces inside the cave were completely covered with long strips of wild boar meat. Red and white marbled, beautifully textured, glistening under the flashlight beam like rows of crimson carpets. Thousands of pounds of premium cuts, all from today's labor. The air was thick with the raw smell of meat, but for three people who'd known real starvation, that smell was the most comforting thing in the world. Wow, so much meat. Su Yao collapsed to the ground, staring at our haul with pure bliss. We couldn't finish this even if we ate until New Year. I sat down too, but my smile faded as a new problem surfaced. This cave was damp. Without preservation, thousands of pounds of raw meat would rot and turn toxic within 2 or 3 days. We needed to smoke it or dry it somehow. But our alcohol fuel was running low, nowhere near enough for smoking this volume of meat. And burning wood inside the cave would fill it with carbon monoxide and smoke. That was suicide. Then a crazy idea struck me. If I can't burn inside, I'll burn outside. The hillside around us was covered in dry branches and dead leaves. What if I set the whole area on fire? The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. A controlled burn would serve multiple purposes at once. The heat would travel through the rock and help dry the meat inside the cave. The fire would incinerate the rotting carcasses outside that were attracting predators. It would kill the venomous centipedes, giant spiders, and other small horrors lurking in the rocks. And it would clear a wide area of forest, giving us open ground for farming and better visibility against approaching threats. The risk was extreme, but our cave went deep into the mountain. We had plenty of space to retreat from the heat. If we sealed the entrance, the thick rock would protect us. I looked at the two exhausted girls and decided to keep this plan to myself for tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'd explore the deeper sections of the cave first. If I told them now, they'd never sleep. Lin Bei, you're covered in blood. Su Li's voice pulled me back. I looked down. My tactical jacket was dark red, soaked through with pig blood from a full day of butchering. Sticky, rank, and disgusting. I peeled off the jacket, leaving my upper body bare. Blood and grime were smeared across my chest and back. Don't move. Su Li walked over with a damp cloth she'd prepared from our dwindling water supply. Let me clean you up. Her voice was soft, gentle. Before I could refuse, Su Yao appeared with another cloth. Me too. Lin Bei big brother worked the hardest today. They surrounded me, one in front, one behind. Su Li knelt behind me and pressed the cool, damp cloth against my burning back. She wiped slowly, carefully, like she was handling something precious. Su Yao crouched in front, concentrating intently as she cleaned the blood from my face and chest. The cave went quiet. Nothing but the soft sound of wet fabric moving across skin. The exhaustion of the day, mixed with their faint scent, mixed with the occasional electric tingle when fingertips accidentally brushed bare skin. Everything blended into something warm and sweet and dangerously intimate. I sat between them, swallowing hard, feeling my pulse quicken. I watched Su Li's hair fall forward as she leaned in. Watched Su Yao's serious, focused eyes as she worked. There, all clean. Su Li pulled her hand back. Even in the dim light, I could see the pink spreading across her cheeks. Let's sleep. My voice came out rougher than I intended. I lay down on the bed of giant leaves we'd arranged and pulled both girls into my arms.